Hello everybody, welcome into our latest live video. We've got the time change, right? Well, we don't, but you guys, many of you might have had to roll back your clocks an hour. In Arizona, we don't roll our clocks back an hour. We're still starting at 1 o'clock, but it may have changed to an hour earlier if you're in the United States. So that would put us now at noon in Pacific time and 3 p.m. Eastern time, and it'll be that way for about 6 months. And this is how it goes year from year, and sometimes we just have to remember. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and today we have a very special video made possible by our community, and I want to talk about that here in a minute. First, say hello to everybody joining us in the chat room who's on board with your not my time change, everybody else's time change here in the US. And hello to David Graham and Tony's RC. Planet Kryos contributes $2. He says, I'm so glad we can help to make another awesome video. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Mark Gaines says hello, as does Garfield Rupe, Parker Morse, Madman Dark Jedi, Phil Stodd, Mark Baggett, and Ron Varnish all say hello. Here's our friend Buster with a $10 super chat, says good evening. Hello, Carey, Mara, and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 55 degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius. 55 degrees Fahrenheit, 12.7 degrees Celsius. Right on. Good to see you, my friend. Also, Charlie Purdy checking in, as is Darren Gilholm. Jim KJ3N says hello. Welcome in, everybody. So today we talk about, most of the videos you see on YouTube are sponsored. Somebody's got to pay the bill. And people think, well, it doesn't cost any money to make a video, but it does. When you start making videos, then you can tell me you didn't spend any money to do it. And I mean, make several a month. Don't just make one. Make, 2, 3 a week for a month, and then tell me what that cost you. Unless you have someone else paying the electric bill, unless you have a lot of time off work or you're retired and you have another source of income. If you're relying on YouTube for income, then go ahead and let me know how much money those videos made. Then the question is, what did it cost you? So it'll always cost you something. And so the way that's typically, and every time I say the word so, take a shot. But the way that's typically done is through sponsorships, advertising, things of that nature. And the advertisers have sort of thrown their hands up. With all the ad blockers being used and people aren't buying their products, they're spending more on advertising than what they're selling. That's not a sustainable business market, so the advertisers are pulling out. Other advertisers may approach with a form of sponsorship where they say, you're gonna review this product, and you're gonna review it on this day, and you're gonna show it to us before you show it to the public. And you're going to make any corrections if we ask you to make any, still publish it on time, or you're not going to get paid and we're not going to send you more products. So what we're doing here is a little more NPR, PBS kind of community supported builds, and today is a great example of that. And I'll tell you how we got here. A gentleman who does not hang out in our chat, his name is Thomas Kukella. Thomas had sent a package to me and he goes, I've sent you something and it'll be a surprise. And what I got was a contribution to the channel in cash and a CPU and a letter. And we read this aloud during a previous broadcast. And essentially, as I recall, he found a computer tossed in the trash. And he opened it up and stripped it for any good parts. And one of the parts that was in there, and he hasn't tested this, was an 11600K Intel CPU. Now, we don't know why that computer was in the trash, but it seems highly unlikely. If the motherboard and the power supply and the RAM and all that was still in it, what are the odds the CPU is bad? It's possible. But he said, I don't have any use for it, but I know a guy who might. Here you go. So this is an 11600K that still has some thermal compound left around it. And this came to us from Thomas in California. So I went shopping around for motherboards for a socket 1200, and boy, oh boy, you just can't find these 5 series motherboards or 4 series boards at a reasonable price. And I just thought, you know, I'll set this aside and one day something will come up. But in the meantime, I'm not going to spend $400 or $500 on a $100 or $200 motherboard because somebody found a chip. You know, I could buy something brand new and spend less money than trying to resuscitate an old chip. So if we look at the value of the chip, for example, we always talk about how when a new chip comes out, there's all this hype about it, like the new AMD chip that'll be out tomorrow, the 9800 X3D. And if you're a gamer, if that's what you're into is playing games, and you want to spend that kind of money, be my guest. Because they were hyped the same flagship chip before that, before that, before that, before that, before that, before that, before that. You don't even discuss those anymore. Like on YouTube, those don't get the views, so they're not discussed. Never mind, it's a terrible value proposition when you look at the, you know, Intel Ultra 9 or the 9800 X3D. They're a terrible ripoff for what you get in return. And just to prove it, go one chip down, go to the next down in the chain from AMD or the next down in the chain from Intel, and you can save 50% on the cost of the chip, but you won't lose 50% of the performance. You might lose maybe 20% tops. So who's just throwing $200 extra or more just to get 20% more when you basically can get 100%? Well, you're getting, how can I phrase this? You are getting a very high performing chip for nearly 50% of the cost, and then you're adding 50% of the cost to make it just a little bit better. And they do this with everything, by the way. Cars are the same way. If you want the V6 Mustang, it's significantly cheaper than the V8 Mustang or the V6 Dodge Challenger to the V8. It's the same car. They put a different engine in it. The gas mileage gets worse, the insurance goes up, and the cost is a good, I don't know, maybe the car is 20% faster and the cost is like 40% more. And the more you want to go, the more the value drops. So if you want to spend a couple $100,000 on a Ferrari, that's a lot of money just to go a little bit fast. I mean, it's seconds, maybe milliseconds. And then when do you use that? Now, if you have that kind of money and you have those kind of intolerant demands, don't let me get in your way. But I'm also not getting caught up in all this hype because, quite frankly, I'm not a gamer. So I don't care how good a gaming CPU for a PC is. A PC to me is not a gaming platform. That's what an Xbox and a PlayStation are for. When you go to a site like Gamers Nexus, it's right in their name, Gamers Nexus, okay? So what do you expect? They're excellent. Steve over there does an excellent job. However, its focus is primarily on gaming. They do cover other subject matter, but gaming is right in the name. And people who can spend that kind of money just to play games, and they have the time to play the games, wow. People live very different lives than me. I have to keep working and paying the bills. So I don't know how I can do that in game, but don't let me get in your way. There's nothing wrong with it. I can't operate my business off of it. So for me personally, my focus is on value. So when I was sent the 11th gen CPU, it's free, we'll use it, right? But then I thought, well, I'll just get a motherboard. What's the big deal? $100. Well, they're not $100 anymore. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and show you the parts today. I'm going to show you how much money these parts are worth if you were to buy them today. Now, these are far from being the latest and greatest. However, it wasn't that long ago when they were. So what I want to keep in mind here is not that much time has passed, but the prices are more than half, at least on everything but the motherboard, which is more than doubled. So let's take a look at that right now. Let me go over to my screen share and let me share this with you. Because man, do I have some news for you. Here is our, and by the way, links for everything I'm showing you, those are all in the video notes below today's video. Here's the motherboard Planet Kryos has sent to us. So Planet Kryos reached out, that's Jason, and Jason said, you know what, I have a Z590, you can have it if you want it. And I said, great, whatever. So I'm thinking, you know, Jason's gonna send me a a basic, whatever, Z590. But this is not a basic Z590. The manufacturer's suggested retail price on this motherboard when it came out was $450. This was a very high-end board just a couple of years ago. You can see here at $294.49, this is used at $294, almost $300 to buy a used motherboard. Plus, Jason had to pack it and pay for shipping all the way from the other side of the country to get it here. Now, if we look at this website, Camel, we can copy and paste an Amazon product link and see what the history, pricing history of this product was and when. So on the left, we have the money up to $360. So this motherboard never came out at $450, right? They always have a higher MSRP than what's actually being asked. And you'll see the highest price from the day it came out was $329.99. The lowest price it had reached was just under $200. At some point, it was at $169.99, somewhere around May of 2023. And that's pretty much when they stopped making them. So this was made for about a year. So from May 2022 through May of 23, and then they said, okay, we're moving our manufacturing on. And at that point, the price starts going back up because the inventories are running out and people are still buying the chips. The chips are still, being sold regularly. And then eventually it kind of levels. The dotted line, I think, means that was the last reported price for anything new. So like new sales stopped. What appears to be right between May and it looks like June of 2023. And all you can buy now are used ones. And you never know the condition. There's not going to be any warranty. So would you want to spend that kind of money, right? Here's your lowest ever price and the date. Here's your highest ever price. Oh, this is showing 2021. I wonder if that's right. And then that's from Amazon. Then there's third-party pricing to compare. But at some point, somebody was asking $580 for this motherboard. This is a amazing motherboard. And I just didn't see that coming. I mean, that's the fact that Planet Kryos was willing to contribute that to us. And we don't even know that the CPU works, right? Now, speaking of the CPU, if we take a look at that, today you can buy that CPU. Well, this CPU, brand new in the box, never used, $167.81. But when that CPU came out, again, if we look at camel.com, we can see that the high price was $295. Its lowest price when it went on sale, probably for Black Friday, September, November, $159 or $158.99. So 4 years ago, well, this is saying pricing 20, how far does this go? 2022. So going into 2022, okay, this starts at 21, and then between November and March, obviously January falls between those, so that's going to be 2022, 2023, 2024. So this chip has been available for 4 years, and it went from a high of $295 on Amazon to a low of $158.99 in 4 years. Actually, that's really in 3 years. Now, when you look at it today, right, if you remember, $295 is what they were selling it at regularly. Today, you're looking at almost half price, but still a viable option if you can find a motherboard. That's the problem. They got plenty of chips, no boards. Or the boards they have are just cheap, like kiosk-style boards, not ones I would use for a customer. So then I had to figure out what RAM and solid-state drive I was going to use. So I found some RAM, brand new in a box here, that I've got from TEAMGROUP. Just 16 gigs. Look how cheap it is, $31. Again, we're talking about values here. And I have an Intel 660 1 terabyte Gen 3 drive, which is all the system's going to need, and it's already purchased. It's a used drive. I just had it sitting. It came out of something. I thought I'll put it in the system. Doesn't need a cooler. It's not that fast, but it's fast enough. So today's build is going to be really super inexpensive. And it's made possible through your contributions, whether those are super chats, your memberships, or you have some parts laying around you'd like to send for a future build. Thomas sent this to us a couple of months ago. Sometimes stuff can sit here for a few months before we have everything we need to utilize it. It doesn't make any sense for somebody to send me a chip, say, here, you might be able to use it, and then for me to spend more money on parts to put it together than buying something brand new and under warranty would cost due to supply and demand. So that's where you take a shot. Then the only problem I had was what cooler to use. There is a slight difference between socket 1200 and the socket 115X that came before it. I think this black cooler was a part of socket 1200 CPUs. I think it'll work fine. I think this is all we're going to need, but it's certainly all we need to test it. As long as the spacing on the mount points is there, it's good enough. We're trying to keep this as cheap as possible. Over here, we've got an EVGA 700 watt power supply. This is what I'm using as my tester. It will not stay with this. Something like this will put a very inexpensive 450, 500 watt power supply, maybe a 550 watt power supply. EVGA's got some great quality power supplies in that range for right around $55 or less. And then on top of that, we need a case, but I haven't decided yet, because at the end of the day, once this is built, and assuming everything works, then this will go with all the other prepped motherboards. And the reason they stay prepped and not installed is I never quite know what the customer is going to want. If the customer wants a flashy case with lots of RGB, if the customer wants a case that can take optical drives, if a customer wants to put a video card in this and make it into a gaming PC, they can certainly do that. Then we need to make sure the power supply that we put in can power that graphics card. We need to make sure the case we put it in is big enough to hold that graphics card. So why would I put it all together when nobody ordered it? It would be like McDonald's pre-making a Big Mac, and then you step up to the counter and order a Big Mac, but you don't want cheese and you don't want onions. So you can either remake the Big Mac from scratch, or you can pull the cheese and the onions off the one they already made. That's more work. You've already made it. So you might as well just make a new one and start over. So my attitude is I'm not going to make those decisions, because now if I don't change it to accommodate the customer's needs, my likelihood of finding a customer just got narrower. But if I can say to any customer interested, I can make you a great deal on it. Tell me what what your preferences are for case and power supply. I haven't finished it. It's still part of the job I have to do. And therefore, it'll sit in a stack with prepped motherboards ready to go and to customize to any specific buyer's needs. That's the business model. Ordinarily, I wouldn't even be building this. But because we have a YouTube channel and this creates content for you, and if you guys want to see more content without us going to a sponsorship, without us making commercials, to keep this going, we need our members, we need our super chats. We need friendly people in the community to draw other people in. Who wants to be in a nasty community, And that's what you guys are doing. And, with folks like Buster, Oystein, Frankie B, Rob Foster, Charlie Purdy, of course, Luke Greenia, and Paul Gray down there in Australia, and many, many others, combined with our memberships and super chats, it has been sustainable. We're not getting rich and we're not doing anything extraordinary, but we are absolutely continuing to have content to make with equipment, new or used. And so I think today will be fun. It'll be interesting to check this out. And I'll definitely, see what I can do to return the favor to our friends Thomas Kukella and Planet Kryos, because if all of this works, I was willing to drop. I was on Amazon looking for a board. I was willing to spend about $150 on a board. Plus, you have to consider Jason also paid for that shipping. So if everything works great and we can use it, maybe I can compensate him for that, or maybe there's something else I can offer. That's the way I think community should work, is we help one another. If we have somebody in the community and all they do is take, take, and they never give anything back, if everybody did that, there wouldn't be anything left. So with the contributions going both ways at the same time, if I'm taking for the community and I'm not giving anything back, I'm going to be up to my eyeballs, above my eyeballs in computer parts. So there's a balance to how we can keep things moving in and moving out, creating new content, and also doing it in a sustainable way where I'm not just cashing checks and buying Teslas, because that ain't happening. Sure. All right, let me go check in on the chat room here, and we're going to get started on today's build. Brought to you by our sponsor, you. I love saying that. Peter VZ renews membership, now a member for 17 months, and Ron Barnish renews his membership, now a member for 27 months. That is awesome. Thank you, guys. Mats Olaf says hello. Welcome in, Mats Olaf. Brian Madonna says Teslas and checks would be nice. I'm going to have to pick another career. Doctor, maybe. Lawyer. And let's see. Glenn's Music said he hasn't been around much because he's had some heart problems. Well, you better take care of those heart problems. Planet Kryos says he has faith the CPU will work. All right, we're going to just use positive affirmations to alter our reality. That's good. We're going to find out for sure. Channel Zero says my system's built around Intel's 10th generation. It covers all my needs. It's got an i5, more RAM than I need, and it's an awesome sound card. Yeah, everybody's needs are different. Jim KJ3N says he had to spend $130 a few months ago for a B650M motherboard that when it was more popular, it was under $90. Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of like buying a last minute plane ticket. You know, if you book it in advance, you get a good price. And if you wait till the last minute, you're going to spend a lot of money. But the technology moves on. And sometimes it can cost you more to hold yourself back than to just keep up with everyone else. But it depends on each circumstance and the reasonings why somebody might want to purchase something that's a bit older. It might be a repair, or it could be a situation which was, you know, clearly the common sense way to go. But if you're building a new system today, I certainly don't want to go too far back. You don't want the latest and greatest because it's way too expensive at the top of the line. Now, the latest and greatest in the midsection, you're looking around $400 for a CPU. In fact, when the Intel Ultra 5 came out, I think it was $429 at Amazon, and today it's $399, and I'm still waiting on a motherboard. But what good did it do me to pay the extra $20 to be first, plus there's sales tax on that, just to have the box sit there? Now, the board should be here by the end of the week. We'll see. It keeps getting delayed. They just haven't released, ASRock hasn't released them yet. And it'll be a first generation, right? So we don't know what sort of problems and hiccups we might come along with that. We're going to pay top dollar for it. And in the meantime, as the CPU sits on the counter waiting for a motherboard, it's already dropped $20 in price. Now, if you bought 10 of those because you had 10 systems to build that you can't start because you don't have your boards, $200. Makes sense since Amazon doesn't price match themselves. In order to get your $20 back, you have to do a return and then order it again. It's so stupid. But that's where we find ourselves, and that's not making this any easier to make content. And that's more likely going to happen on a brand new product. When the product first comes out, the sellers want to take every penny from you. They're not your friends. They want every penny you're willing to spend. And once that kind of first wave goes away, and those willing to spend that extra penny have, you know, resulted in little sales, they go, okay, I guess we can mark this down to what the manufacturer's suggested retail price is, which is, by the way, still like $10 over manufacturer's suggested retail, because we go to wave 2. Where's the next line of people that are willing to overpay for this processor? Let's get their money. And then they wait until sales slow down. And this will keep repeating and repeating and repeating. All you have to do is be patient if you want a great deal. You do risk that the thing you're trying to buy will sell out. On the other hand, it depends on the season. So like during the holiday season, a lot of things are going to be very attractively priced and sell out quickly as a result. But during the rest of the year, quite often you just wait a couple weeks, inventory gets replenished. It's not a big deal. So if you're impatient, you pay more. That's the bottom line. And if you're too patient, you're also going to pay more just because the parts aren't available. It's a supply and demand issue on waiting too long and wanting it too soon. Right down the middle is where you want to be. Now, with that said, let me move this over here and let me move this over here. I have to tell you, the way Jason sent this motherboard, it's like it's brand new. I can't believe how well. He even put a little sticker on it that kept the lid closed. We have a letter inside, right there, right there. Man, I'll tell you what. Why can't I find an employee that works with that kind of attention to detail and pride? Carey, he says, PK here. Here's the motherboard for that 11th gen CPU that you have. I'm contributing it to the channel. I hope the CPU works and you can sell it or do a PC giveaway to someone in need. Your channel has brought so many of us together where we've built a respectful community. I know it will only get better from here. When I started watching you back in 2016, that was the moment it inspired me to build my own PC, and now I even have my own small YouTube channel myself because of you. Yeah, we've got a link to that in the video notes. An excellent channel, by the way. He does great work. By the way, he says, there is a BIOS update on this board. I'll let you do that for the content. Thanks for all you've done and will do. And that's from PK. Planet Kryos. I've already downloaded the BIOS last night. I put it on a flash drive, so we're good to go there. I'm going to set that over here. That looks like brand new. And it's heavy. We got SATA cables. We've got stickers. We even have the nylon zip ties. We've got the quick disconnects for the M.2. We've got even more SATA cables. It looks like there's 6 SATA cables in this bag. We've got some rubber feet for something, more rubber feet. We have a bracket, which is probably, I don't know what that's for. A fan, some sort of an optional fan that's clearly not needed unless you're overclocking. Yeah, that's another one of those little quick disconnects. This is a something you put on your keychain, like a little tag for free advertising for Asus, I guess. We have a DVD drive with drivers. I haven't seen one of those in a while. It's everything. Like I'm telling you, he sent us like a brand new motherboard, as far as I can tell. The only way I know this is used is the bag is a little wrinkled. You know, it's not as smooth. But look at this. Like this board is like brand new. Have I said that enough times? This is not what I was expecting. A lot of times people have some old junk laying around. To them it's junk. And they go, hey, you want my old junk? And if I can, you know, polish that junk and make it look nice, I'll take it. Very rarely does somebody say, hey, I got this like brand new high-end motherboard and he kind of undersold it. Of course, he's got the little plastic CPU cover on there. I'm excited. I'm impressed. Very generous. And also we have, this board has built-in Wi-Fi. So we have an antenna. Oh, those aren't SATA cables. Those are antenna cables that are in there. Okay, I was like, that seemed like a lot of SATA cables. So that's our Wi-Fi antenna. So when we're done with this, what we do is we throw this piece out. I just want to make sure there's nothing else in it. We have a built-in I/O shield, so we don't have to worry about that part being, in the box. It's part of the motherboard. And then we keep everything else for the build here in the box, as you're probably aware of by now. And after the board is prepped, it will sit on top of the box. And I'll put an index card that reminds me what's underneath the heatsink. Or if I put a different, third-party cooler, what it is I put on there. What NVMe drive is sitting underneath the heatsink, I can't see it. I have to fire the whole thing up and run software to determine what the heck I installed, how much RAM is on there. So I'll write all that down on an index card and just lay it on top of the PCI slots here. It's not conductive, it's paper. And then when somebody calls and says, do you have something like this? And of course, the problem we run into is twofold. A lot of it is a big waste of time when you're trying to handle a lot of people or a lot of requests. And by a lot, it could be as few as 2 or 3 a day, but when they take 90 minutes to 2 hours each, there goes my day. So what I tell people, they'll say, what's the best thing you've got? Or what's the best video card I could buy? Or whatever the best of whatever is. And I try not to get caught in that time suck trap. What I'd prefer to ask is, how much money do you have to spend? Because let's not waste our time. We can go as fast as you want to go. All you got to do is give me more money. And it's not me pricing it, right? I'm just the middleman. I'm putting it together for you. So let's just cut to the chase. Let's not talk about what's possible. Let's talk about what you can afford. Based on what you can afford will be your best, right? I can tell you what's the best in that price range to get everything you need, all fitting underneath that umbrella of budget. So if your budget's $600 and you're asking me what the best CPU is, you don't even have enough money to buy that CPU. If your budget is $1,000 and you want to know the best GPU to put in there for a gaming system, well, I'm assuming you already have a computer and you're just asking me for the GPU, because $1,000 isn't going to get you much. So that's a lot of wasted time going back and forth. And instead, and again, at scale, when you're call after call or email after email, what ends up happening, if you don't cut to the chase, is you end up with what I think is a pretty funny joke, where Buddy Hackett was on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and he told this joke, and you can find it on YouTube. And this is essentially the same thing, where the woman from the city goes to the farm, and she's looking around the farm, and she noticed, she says to the farmer, how come that cow doesn't have any horns? And the farmer explains all the reasons why some cows don't have horns. They can create a health problem for them. Sometimes they are hazardous and they use them to hurt people or to hurt other animals or hurt themselves, and they get cut down. Or sometimes when they're little babies, you can put little acid where the horns would grow. It keeps the horns from growing. And he explains this and explains all the different reasons why some cows don't have horns. But the reason that cow doesn't have any horns is because that cow is a horse. You see how much of a waste of time all of that was. And the person asking the question isn't doing it on purpose. But once we've established what the real question is, we can get to the answer faster. We can get to work. Customer can have what they need. Either way, whether they just need answers or they need a number and an estimated time of arrival for what they're getting and what they're getting. Once we get there, we can start the work. Once we start the work, we can finish the work sooner, get it to the customer sooner. We get paid sooner. We can help the next customer sooner. Everybody's happy. So, yeah, when you're just helping a friend, that's one thing. But when you're trying to help a lot of people, and you do it Monday through Friday, or in my case, Sunday through Sunday, every single day, calls come in, emails come in, and it's repeating over and over and over. And so I try to just jump right to the, what is your budget and what do you need the computer to do? That's it. That's all I want to know. And any other special requirements. I need an optical drive. I need RGB. I need a liquid cooler. We need to know that, and then based on that, we can take away from other things that are less important to you. All right, you want a liquid cooler? We have to lower the processor maybe to get in this budget, or we have to dump the RGB. You can have anything you want. You cannot have everything you want. That's the lesson. What do you want more? What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up to get what you really, really want? And the only alternative to that is to just throw money at it. Now, if you throw money at it, you can get whatever you want. But you're also looking at potentially 6 to 10 times your original budget. It's not uncommon to find PCs that sell for over $10,000. If that's what you want, we can build it. All right, so getting back to the chat room here, Ian Gooch with a 10-pound super chat contribution. Ian says, Carey, it's a cold evening here in London. It's 53 degrees, 51. I can't see it. And it's dropping. Hello to everyone in the chat. Welcome in, Ian. Thank you so much for your contribution. Hey, there's Zdravko Frankovic. We haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you again, Zdravko. He's been a member now for 29 months, so even though he's been kind of hidden, he's been there. He says, hello, Carey and company. Let's go do something. I agree. Let's do something. Bob R. Good to see Bob. He's a member now for 29 months. He says, hello, Carey and chat. Hi, Bob. Good to see you. Planet Kryos is like, hold on, that motherboard has some pep. Yeah, he's probably like, wait a minute, you better send that back. I changed my mind. It's a really good board. It's a really good board. Rod Barnich with a membership renewal, now a member for 27 months, says time keeps moving on. Well, you better hope it doesn't stop. Yes, agreed. It does move quickly, though, doesn't it? If the system doesn't boot, I'm sure it won't be because of the board. I'm sure. We just don't know what the CPU has been through. Why was it in a system in the dumpster when it's so relatively new? And we very rarely see bad CPUs. If a system won't boot, and we have taken out everything except, let's say we've replaced everything but the CPU and the motherboard, odds are it's the motherboard. We've only seen a handful of CPUs that are bad in the 30 plus years I've been doing this. It happens. It's just very rare. On the other hand, I couldn't count how many motherboards I've had to swap out. What usually ends up happening if you diagnose a CPU or a motherboard issue, likely they're out of warranty by then. And the cost to repair it, only to make it the same as it was, is oftentimes not that much less. Sometimes it could even cost more than buying a brand new motherboard and CPU, getting a brand new warranty, and having a system that was better after it's fixed. Better than it ever was before, more powerful, faster. It's a great excuse to upgrade. When you compare the repair cost to the upgrade cost, even if the upgrade's a few dollars more, it makes more sense for all those reasons. Otherwise, if it's in warranty, the repair makes sense because you're getting the part for free, assuming you can wait 2 or 3 weeks to get the replacement. Or the company you're dealing with, like me, would swap it out with an inventory board, put you back in business right away, and then I would send your board in for repair. When it eventually comes back, it'll go back on the shelf as a spare. That's all built into a price. So of course you can build it cheaper, but you're also going to be your own support. If you want to order things off AliExpress, you can get good deals, but you're not going to get it fast. And if you have any problems, you're on your own. If you're willing to sacrifice that peace of mind and insurance for a cheaper price, have at it. Just don't be surprised. Know exactly why it's cheaper. When you buy a very expensive luxury automobile, it typically comes with the kind of service. And, when you show up to the dealership for a repair, you are treated, in my experience, far better than buying a car from the average ordinary Toyotas and Nissans and Chevys and Fords or Hyundais. I've never had worse treatment than a Hyundai. I've been completely ignored. I pull up to the service dealer in a BMW. They already know who I am based on my license plate. And even though I never told them I was coming, they immediately saw me and greeted me before I shut the engine off, knowing who I am. That never ever happened at Ford or GM or Hyundai for sure. Hyundai, I'd pull into a service bay and there's nobody working. I don't know, do I stay in the car? Do I go out and get somebody? Where are they? Am I allowed to walk around the service bay? Is there any, do they know I'm here? It's the eeriest feeling in the middle of a business day to just have the place vacant and nobody appears to be working. But the car is cheaper. Somebody has to pay for the service. Somebody has to pay for warranty cost. That's built into the price one way or the other. When you get that cheaper price, unless it's on sale like a Black Friday thing, if you're buying from eBay, if you're buying from Craigslist or OfferUp, that is garage sale stuff, man. You are on your own. And yes, it's possible to return things. It's not often easy. All right. So if you're okay with that gamble, knock yourself out, man. I find the people who can least afford to gamble are the ones doing the most gambling. And it's just like, don't you see how you're just doing the same thing and making a situation worse? Yeah, sure, sometimes it works out. But what if it doesn't? What's the plan? Just buy it again? When you could barely afford it the first time that you had to buy it cheaper, now you're going to buy it twice, and you're wasting time, and you're getting frustrated. How does that make any sense? But to each their own. Planet Kryos says, I did show this motherboard posting on my channel. So it won't be the board if there is an issue, unless it is. That shouldn't be fine. No, I agree with you. I am, first of all, it's a high quality board. And it's an ROG Strix from Asus. So it's a higher end board at that as well. So we're going to find out anyway. We're going to plug it in and it'll be what it'll be. Douglas Burchell renews membership, now a member for 16 months. He says, hello, Carey and Mara. It's been a great 16 months being here with y'all and the chat family. Well, we've been delighted that you're here joining us and a part of this amazing community. Robert Kashna says, hello from Slovenia. Right on. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for joining us. Okay. Scrolling. David Graham with a $2 super chat says he was sick from food poisoning on Monday. Ooh. Oh, I hate that. I will tell you, as being an extraordinarily picky eater, I couldn't tell you the last time I had food poisoning. If anything doesn't look right, doesn't taste right, I won't eat it. I'd rather not eat. I've been very fortunate, either through having this hypersensitive palate, or through, enjoying my food cooked really, really well, to cook out anything that, like any sort of bacteria or parasite. If anything, if I get some chicken and it seems a little pink in the middle, I won't risk it. Not worth it. Just throw it away. I don't like to throw food away, but what's worse is ruining a whole day. And I've got friends that'll eat whatever you put in front of them. You give them a plate of anything, they'll eat it. I'm kind of jealous of that because it seems so carefree. I'm picking and I'm looking and I'm analyzing and I'm smelling and I'm tasting and the texture's off if it doesn't taste right. Anything at all. I'm not just going to cover it up with some seasoning. And I don't know what kind of person you are, David. I have no idea. But with the E. coli outbreaks from McDonald's, people couldn't tell, right? They had no idea. So some cases you just can't avoid it. It's just bad luck. A lot of cases of food poisoning will often happen at family dinners, like the family gets together for Thanksgiving and somebody didn't cook the turkey long enough and everybody gets sick. What are you going to do? You're not going to eat the turkey and be rude? Believe me, I'm rude. If I think that turkey's not good, I ain't eating it. And if it offends you, too bad. Don't invite me next year. Do us both a favor. But I'm sorry to hear you went through that, and hopefully you're feeling better today. It happens to us all, man. Just some people it happens to more than others. David said he's weak, but he's better. All right, well, that's good. Every day should be getting better. Now, coming up this Friday, just so you know, the contributions from you guys have been very generous with the Amazon gift cards. So we've been able to purchase an AMD 9800X, which is very, very similar in price, performance, and everything to the Intel Ultra 5. And as I mentioned, we're still waiting for the motherboards. We have chips, we don't have boards. But on the AMD side, we've got everything. We've got the RAM, we've got the board, we've got a case and power supply that were intended for the AMD 8000 build we were going to do back at Studio B. Until we tested an AMD 8000 series chip and it found out it only had PCIe Gen 4 support and it ran 95 degrees Celsius as it was its normal running temperature, I want nothing to do with an 8000 series desktop AMD CPU. They all suck. I hate them, and I can't believe how many people have bought them. But the 9000 series, things have changed. So what we ended up doing as a result of the 8000 series being so terrible, I returned the 8000 series chip I had. It was still brand new in a box. Amazon took it back. We changed the case to the Johnsbow TK1 build. TK1, TK2. And so I needed a micro ATX board. I went with Intel, and I decided to use the Johnsbow cooler and the Johnsbow fans to make a Johnsbow build. And that's what happened. In the meantime, the case and the power supply that were originally purchased for a full-size ATX AMD 8000 series CPU, because everybody was hyping it, it was all waste. So the CPU got returned, the cooler for that got returned, the case, the power supply, all of that went back on a shelf, and it was like, well, one of these days we'll use it for something. Well, because the Black Widow case we have is white, we needed to find a white board. And because all the RAM we have is black or red, we needed white RAM, DDR5 white RAM. We needed a white power supply, which I already had with the white Black Widow case. I don't know why is it called a Black Widow if it's white. Wouldn't that be a White Widow? Everything's brand new. Nothing's been taken out of the box or ever used. We're going to do that on Friday, and we hope you'll join us for that community-funded build, because without the contributions of the community, I couldn't have afforded to buy the board, to buy the 9900X, to buy the Ultra 7 265K Intel, to buy the motherboard that still hasn't come in yet, and to buy the needed RAM that we required. And the cooler I'm going to use on Friday's build is a cooler I bought many months ago, and it never got used, and I think it's an NZXT Kraken, it's a 360-degree cooler, which I think on the Black Widow can only fit vertically at the front of the case. I don't think there's enough room at the top. And I don't even think the 9900X requires a cooler of that level, but it's going to look amazing. And then the Friday after that, hopefully by then we have a motherboard, and we can do another build with the Intel equivalent, the Ultra 7 265K, which should act and perform and be priced in almost nearly every way as the 9900X. It's very difficult to tell the two apart from anything. Each chip does a little something better than the other one, but overall, when you average it all out, they're identical. So at this point, the difference between them is blurred. Pick one or the other, who cares? The prices of the boards are about the same, the RAM's going to be the same, the SSDs are going to be the same, and the chip performance and efficiency is near enough to be the same along with the price. Is that a good thing? There's no clear winner here when you take a 9900X and you place it up against an Ultra 7 265K. Other than anything specific you need it to do, one may do that slightly better than the other one, and that may be the reason why you go with one over the other. But there's no clear winner here. So there you go. There's your next 2 Fridays. Now, let's get started with building this. The first thing I want to do is let's get the CPU out of here. Let's get it in the socket. And then we'll put the NVMe drive in and the RAM, and we should be able to fire it up. It should be that quick. Mark Gaines with a £5 super chat. Mark watches us from Northern Ireland. He says, talking about contributions, I hope you got my Amazon gift card. Okay, so right now, normally, if you just sent that, Mara's normally in the background doing a lot of stuff back there, like answering your emails or redeeming gift cards and sending thank yous. She has an appointment today, and yesterday, if you're referring to yesterday, did we get one? Hold on a second. It's really important to me that I make sure anybody who contributes anything gets recognition for that. And I say thank you, because that's how my mama raised me. So like on, was it Monday's video, Raj D sent a very nice Amazon gift card. as did Paul Gray and Charlie Purdy. Paul Gray did twice, actually. That's a great question, and it's one probably Mara could answer. I don't see anything in my inbox right now, since we've started, nothing new has come in that I'm seeing. It doesn't mean it's not there. But if you want to reach out in about an hour, I would imagine Mara will be back and she'll be able to answer the question for us. Okay, but thank you very much. We'll find it. Bob R. said, YouTube commercials are interrupting the live broadcast. Why is that happening? Well, the reason that's happening is in order for free viewers, in order for viewers to watch our content for free, when the free viewers aren't giving anything back, the only way that we can offer this to free viewers is to put a commercial in. And each time we put a commercial in, we make 90% less revenue than we did when we put commercials in. And it's not we, it's YouTube that's doing it, not us. I have no idea what commercials are being put in or when. That's how we're paying for content for the free viewers. Memberships, on the other hand, get no commercials during members-only videos. I wouldn't do that to you. If you've paid to be a member and you watch a video on Mondays that are members only, you won't find any ads in those. But if you want to join in on the regular public videos, which is any day other than Monday for the most part, those videos need to be funded, since the viewers in general, 99% of our viewers, will consume our content and give us nothing in return. And on top of that, they're using ad blockers. As a result, what ends up happening is we either have to make these videos available only to members so we can turn the commercials off. But then how do we get any new members if only members can see the content? How does anybody in the public decide, hey, I want to support that and be a part of it? The problem is the people that watch it and consume it are far greater than those who watch it and give back. Like I said, it's more than 99% of our viewers don't give us anything. They think their view is worth something, and unfortunately, not from my decision, YouTube has determined their value is worth 90% less as a viewer than it was 2 years ago. So if I made a penny from you from watching my video 2 years ago, I now make 1/10 of a penny from you watching my video. Therefore, we have to put more ads in more often. Now, if people keep using ad blockers and the sponsors are already paying so little now that they're getting frustrated and they go away entirely, then the only free content you'll be able to watch will be commercials. And that's just the way it's going to go because of culture. But as long as we can maintain our values and be able to do our videos our way, and then be able to offer that for free under no conditions to the general public, we do that. But sometimes the general public stalks me and harasses me. And that's how they give back, is just by creating an annoyance and an aggravation. They don't scare me. They're just, it's like a room full of flies, you know, get the pest control out. Now you got a double whammy where you're giving the content for free to people who won't give anything back and then harass you. So then you definitely want to make it members only and solve all these problems, but then how do you grow? So if you want to watch the videos without the ads, there's two different ways to do it. One is only watch my members' videos, number one. Those never have any advertising in them. Or two, you can sign up for a YouTube, what do they call it now, Premiere? And it's like $14 or $15 a month to remove all ads across YouTube. And it does work. I pay for it because I don't have the tolerance to sit there and wade through ads. For $15 a month, I can watch any YouTube channel at any time and never see an advertisement, except when the YouTube channel itself is the advertisement, which is what most of the big tech channels are. They're nothing but big commercials disguised as reviews. So you're still watching ads. I don't know. I don't have a solution, but that's why we have to do it. Sorry to say. Now, if you have a solution for me that I haven't considered, genuinely please share that with me, because I'm racking my brain on trying to solve this, and everything's got consequences. There's collateral damage no matter which way I go. But I don't want to stop, you know, I want to keep going. So if you have any ideas, yeah, please share them with us in an email. We'd appreciate it. You know, I'm a tech. I'm not a marketing guy. Douglas Burchell's got YouTube Premium. He says he loves it. Paul Howe says, I use that service as well. Yeah, I've got to tell you, you know, the number of ads that you see, and I think this is the part you'll find most disappointing. Your time is worth almost nothing to YouTube and Facebook. They used to value your eyeballs. They don't really value them much anymore. If you find out just how little Facebook makes from advertising, for example, on your social media account on Facebook, it's about $12 a year. That's what you're worth to them. So if you can pay anything more than $12 a year, it's good for them and it's good for you because now you don't have to see the ads anymore. Now Facebook doesn't offer that, but YouTube does. And in YouTube's case, the price has gone up, and I don't agree with the price. It used to be $10 a month. That's what it should be. They brought it up to 15, but rest assured, you're not worth $15 a month to YouTube. You simply aren't. The advertisers are reduced their value so low that if you're just watching videos all day, and especially if you have an ad blocker, but even if you don't, even if you're watching the ads, the total revenue that YouTube is making from you alone on that free business model is under $10 for sure. So by you paying $15 for premium, they're making more than they would have through advertisers. It's easier money for them to make. And on top of that, you're not getting annoyed with the ads. So everybody wins. I don't know why Facebook wouldn't just say, you know what, we're going to make $12 for you. You give us the $12, we don't need to put the advertising. That's see, it works the other way around too. When the advertisers devalue the eyeballs of the consumer, then the advertisers themselves are devalued as being, you know, we won't miss you if you're gone because you're not paying enough to make it worth putting up with you. So the advertisers are getting exactly what they give. It goes back and forth. So that's how we got to where we are, and this is universal across any free platform right now. That is the struggle. The business side of this is ugly. But I'm glad you're here, and I thank you for supporting us. We have a very dirty CPU here that's going to have to be cleaned up. This is how it was sent. Wait a minute. Let me turn my OBS view on here. I just want to show you the condition is it was just pulled out and wiped off and sent. It wasn't cleaned. So we need to clean it before we put the cooler on. And certainly it was very nice of Thomas to send this to us, to think of us. And we have some compound, if you look closely there on the bottom of the chip, which we'll get some Q-tip and rubbing alcohol and wipe that off. Just make sure that the alcohol evaporates before we put it in the socket. No big deal. But obviously I don't want to install it. I was going to clean the top of this after it's installed. But to clean the bottom, well, I think that's pretty obvious. I need to do that first before I can install it. So we'll grab our isopropyl alcohol and we'll grab our Q-tips. Paul O'Brien renews membership, now a member for 17 months. He goes, 17 months, that's the easiest prison time ever. All right, let's, thank you for supporting us, Paul. Let's go to getting this cleaned up so we can install it. So I have some thermal compound here right on the edge. It's as much an OCD thing as it is a very serious potential problem if you ignore it. Like if you're somebody who's just a sloppy person and doesn't really pay attention to all the garbage you're stepping on your floor, it doesn't bother you. It can actually hinder the ability of your computer to operate correctly if the connections are being disrupted by something that's impeding the flow of the data, right, that goes through each one of those pins. And if you're blocking it, it's just like having blocked plumbing. Nothing can get through it. Wow, there's a lot of thermal compound right there. So it's one thing to live in a mess. It's another thing to live with a backing up toilet that's spilling all over the floor. And so I would prefer that I do this once and I do it right the first time. Then I can move on to the next thing. It's not really because I want to, it's because I have to. If I want to stay in business, I can't just let one project monopolize all my time. That won't generate enough money to stay in business. Over time, you know, it'll be costing me more to run the business than the business is bringing in. Which is why all businesses fail, by the way. And I don't have a trash can here, and I don't want to just set this down and let the rubbing alcohol potentially stain anything I put it on. So just give me a minute here as I step off camera for a moment. And does my audio sound better or worse than it has in the past? Any difference? I have two different models of wireless receivers and sending units, and I'm using the other one today. And I'm curious if you're noticing a difference and if that difference is better or worse. All right, we're going to open the socket up. The socket is as good a shape as the whole board, of course, because Planet Kryos knows what he's doing. He respects the tech. He pays attention to details. And you can tell because if he had a chip in here, you'll never know it. There's no spilled thermal compound. There's no bent pins. Everything looks like brand new. This clearly didn't look like brand new, but at the same time, all Thomas did was rip it out of a computer at a dumpster or at a curb and send it to us. But in theory, everything should work. NVMe drive time. Look at the tape is still on here. What's underneath this one? I'm curious. Did Planet Kryos even use these? Tape is still on this one. Sometimes people don't want to use this slot nearest the CPU because that can take away from lanes. If you're putting a GPU in here, it could reduce your GPU performance. The tape is on all of these. Wow. Talk about like new. Holy cow. Just made my job a lot easier. And he's going to make this build a lot nicer than what I was picturing. What I was picturing in my head was something pretty basic. Nothing basic about this. As I mentioned, I have this Intel 660p. It's like a 1 terabyte Gen 3 drive. It's just going to be plenty fast. I think what people fail to realize is every generation the speed doubles, and you reach a point of such diminishing returns that who cares anymore? Like when we went from 3,600 megabytes per second to 7,200, and then from 7,200 to 15,500, Generation 6 will be 31,000. Generation 7 will be 62,000 megabytes per second. And at some point, when is enough enough? And for most people, 550 megabytes per second on SATA 3 is plenty, honestly, for your average user. To jump from 550 to 3,600. Now this one, as a 660p, this is a budget Gen 3, so it won't hit 3,600. But even if it hits 2,000, it's still nearly 4 times the SATA speeds. So unless you're somebody who's writing an awful lot of data and needs a lot of power, then my next question is, why do you only have an 11600K? Why wouldn't you have, you know, if you have those kind of demands, wouldn't you have everything really expensive? So this one, well, these all have the quick disconnects. This one does not. This one has a small screw here that I can't seem to. That's my problem. Is it sideways? Yeah, it's in sideways. Okay, one little flaw. It wasn't straight. And tape. I'm going to remove the tape. And we can always swap the drive out, by the way, you know, if we want something better. But we're trying to build this as cheap as we can build it, as inexpensively as we can build it. And while you might turn your nose up at some of these reported speeds, you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference. Most of you. Outside of benchmarks, most of you would never be able to know. You'd say, well, you know, Microsoft Windows still starts in about the same amount of time. All my programs launch, like Word, Excel, Chrome, or Edge, they all load pretty much in the same... which way did this go? He had it on this way. I'm wondering what this hole is for, but I can see now that hole is there for the motherboard mounting hole, that because this is extended so long. I don't know why they didn't simply cut it off by the end of the screw. I imagine it's an aesthetic preference that Amazon went with here. And the hole is there so when we go to mount the motherboard into the case, we have to go through that. Otherwise, you'd have to take the heatsink off, then mount the motherboard, and then put the heatsink back on, which we had to do with the Threadripper build, the second Threadripper build, I believe. I was none too happy about that. So all I'm trying to do is put this heatsink back on. There's really nothing that helps you to align it. So I'm just trying to find where the mount is. And I just spin that. It's not biting into anything below it. I just have to kind of feel for it, I guess. Where did it go? Yeah, facing it towards you isn't helping me any. It had to come way up. That's a long screw, and me just moving it around, it was never going to find it that way. That right there, that should be in line now. Boy, I sure would be nice if they had some alignment recesses or pins that this piece could align to, and it would just lock in when you dropped it in. It's interesting to me that they have a quick disconnect for the drive under it, well, at least for these two, but they're still going old school on the heat sinks. Why can't those be quick disconnects too? Why do it halfway? I like ASUS, don't get me wrong. I just sometimes wonder what's going on. There is a fabric tag, like a pair of jeans has, coming out of this heatsink. Isn't that weird? Wasn't sure if that was supposed to be there. I've never seen fabric attached to a motherboard before. That's a new one. Now with regards to our heatsink, I suppose we could go ahead and throw some thermal compound on. I've already got the bottom cleaned here. So, you know, I have a lot of tubes of the side stuff left over. Let's go ahead and put some on there. Well, that's plenty. Kind of feel like there's not much left in the tube. I was wrong. Well, there's nothing left in the tube now. That way I can at least throw it out. We've got too much on there, but nothing a nitrile glove won't fix. And we'll just take that excess off by leaving it on the finger of the glove. Charlie Purdy with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Charlie. And Planet Kryos with a $5 super chat. Carey, do we need to send you a by your side trash can? Actually, I have several. I just don't have any room for it here. Once I get the studio organized, which should happen sometime this month, I will have a little trash can. I do have one. I just don't have anywhere to put it. But thank you. All right, now I'm going to just smear the thermal compound around. As I mentioned, I got a lot on here, so I'm going to switch fingers so that it'll stay. Some of this is going to stay on the finger, and that's how I'm going to take off any excess. And we're just finger painting, right? We just want to make sure we have the whole surface of the top of the CPU, sometimes called the IHS or the internal heat shield, completely covered so you can't see it. We don't want it dripping over the sides. That's it. That's as difficult as it is. All this extra is a little wasteful, but when we turn the glove inside out, it should keep it nice and clean so we don't get any on us because it's difficult to remove. And then I can get rid of this, and I can get rid of this, and I can get rid of this. Now, normally when I know I'm going to do this, I will bring a little trash can or maybe even a little shopping bag that I can temporarily use. And the reason I haven't dealt with it yet is because we haven't been doing much in this line of type of content. We've been reviewing a lot of mini PCs and NASs and things like that, and they don't require as much material for me to, I don't apply thermal compound, and I don't need a nitrile glove. I don't need to break out my isopropyl alcohol. So for that reason, I've been a bit unprepared for this kind of work. But, so I walk off camera for 10 seconds, you're welcome. You didn't need to look at me anyway. The other thing is we want to make sure these posts that they're going to be in a lockable position, which I believe, these don't even tell me which way is locking and which way is unlocking. So we'll just try one and see what happens. If you push down on it and it doesn't go down, you need to turn it a quarter turn. Maybe you should have started there. This heatsink won't fit. It's the slight difference between where the holes are on the, this must have been on a 12th or 13th gen. It's slightly wider, and that means I will have now put some thermal compound on what was otherwise a clean surface, but just on that one corner I pushed down. So let me grab, I need like a flat screwdriver to turn that. This will work. And we just turn this little post, 1/4 turn, and lift up on it. That unlocks it. Oh wow, it didn't even make contact. So this is the wrong heatsink to use for this socket. So that's the other problem. When you have a lot of heatsinks like I do, it's not like they say on them with their stock heatsinks. It's not like they say this is for a stock 1700 or 1200 or whatever. They don't tell you. The good news is I have a lot. And I do mean a lot of heat sinks. So let me just go over here to this other bag and see what we can find. This is what, an i5 11600K. So that probably uses one of these. Let's see, what is this? That might work. This one might, no, that one's not gonna work. That's another 12th or 13th gen. That's the same one I just had. Well, not the same design. I've got something brand new in a box. What is this? This says it's an i5, 13500. That's gonna be the same. That's not gonna work. Come on, Carey. What you do with all those old heat sinks? Well, I'll tell you what, I don't think this heat sink's big enough, but I do believe it's the right fitment. So this is an older heat sink, and I just don't remember what it came with, but it'll get the job done for now. I think that when it comes time to put this into a case, maybe we put a Mugen 6 on it. We could put a Mugen 5 on it. We could put a Be Quiet Pure Rock, one of those coolers, air towers. We could throw a Noctua what is it called? An NHU12S. We could put on a liquid cooler, like just a 260 or something. But just for us to test it and get Windows installed, this is probably adequate, just adequate, I hope. It's already clean underneath, so let's Let's orient that and let's see if this lines up. Yeah, that one's lining up. One, two, three, four. Delays, delays. What are you doing? I'm trying to blow up the Earth. It's obstructing my view of Venus. In here, I should have somewhere in the drawer. Aha! We have a brand new part we've never used. This is 2 sticks of 8. This is DDR4, and it is 3200 speed. No RGB. Okay, I'm going to set this aside. The RAM is silver in color. If I can figure out how to open the package. It's like in a plastic container, not unlike the food packaging at the grocery store for the freshly packed stuff. When you take the RAM out of a package like this, always bend the package. Don't bend the RAM to get it out. You're going to bend the package away from the RAM, and then the RAM should come out nice and easy. If you see RAM that's labeled to work with AMD or RAM that's labeled to work with Intel, those are just marketing strategies. There really isn't such a thing. There's RAM they tested and verified to work with AMD, and RAM they tested and verified to work with Intel. But likely you can swap them all around however you want. As long as it's DDR4 versus DDR5, that's all that should matter. All right, we're going to open up the retention levers on the RAM here. This side doesn't open because if it did, it could potentially hit the graphics card if we had one. That's why if you're wondering why one side opens and one doesn't, there would be clearance issues to get these open. If there were a GPU installed and you needed to switch your RAM out, you would first have to take your GPU out to do it otherwise. There's one. And there's 2. And of course, we always skip a channel. When we do that, we go to channel 1, which is always a slot away from the CPU. Universally on all boards, the slot closest to the CPU is your second channel. We want to start with our first channel, and then we skip another slot, and that completes the first channel. That's why there's 2 empty slots, because there's 4 slots. We use 2 sticks. Do not put them side by side. They'll work, but not in high performance mode. Nothing worse than watching people spend extra money for stuff they don't need, that they want the high performance, and they don't install it and don't get the performance out of it. But because the machine works and it's running, they think they did a great job and they're happy. And then someone points out, you know, you didn't build that right. You know, well, it works. Okay, but all that extra money you paid for this high performance RAM, you're not using it. Sure I am, it works. I go, yeah, no, you're not in one channel. What does that mean? So it's more than just throwing money at problems, okay? You gotta understand what you're buying, and even then, still doesn't mean you're gonna use it. There's our power supply. I need a power switch. So I just have one of these. You can buy these all day long on Amazon. They're cheap. Then they have different form factors of switches. This one's all metal, so I kind of like that. We'll put that onto our front switch header right there. We need video out of this, so I will find a video cable that I'm standing on, and a power cable that I'm also standing on, apparently, as I'm looking down and realizing all my cables are underneath my feet. But at least I know where they are. So we can plug power to the power supply, make sure the switch is off for safety. We'll plug HDMI into the motherboard right back here. We're going to use onboard video. And I need a keyboard and a mouse. As always, I have the same wireless keyboard and mouse that share a dongle. And these are compact, meaning they run on batteries and they're intended to be portable or use a small amount of desk space. I don't have a numeric keypad. I have a very small workbench. I don't want a big, heavy keyboard. This one's not my favorite, but because everybody likes how it looks on camera, I use it. I would never use this on anything, and this is a studio prop is what this is. It's just there for looks. It's not good, and it's way overpriced. All right, so now I think that's all we need to test boot this. So we're going to flip power switch on. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I don't know. I'm just going to do it. RGB has started to light up here, right there on the I/O shield. And we're going to hit the power button. Fan is spinning. Diagnostic LEDs are blinking. Let's switch over to our camera 2 input, which is this cable, is what we're calling camera 2. Now remember, our first boot up may take a moment. It says no signal. The board is training the CPU and the RAM in order to identify what are the best settings for those to react reliably and highest performance-wise. What's the fastest I can talk to this? So it's making attempts to communicate at different levels to determine which level's right and to use the JDEC information and information on the CPU to automatically adjust the BIOS to preset variables identified for those parts. Once it's done that, then we can boot up. As you see, our power on self-test or post screen appears. I'm going to hit, what is it, F1 to continue. All right, let's hit F1. Probably have to turn the keyboard on first. Okay, I've turned on my keyboard. I pressed F1. We're telling the BIOS, yes, whatever those settings were you came up with, those are good. Now that we're in the BIOS, we do know that there is a new version, as Planet Kryos has alerted us to, what do you say, 2302, and we're on version number, where is it? Memory, prediction, today's date and time. The time is off because Jason is 2 hours ahead of us. But that'll self-correct in Windows. Where's my version? It's typically right on the first page. Oh, 2001. BIOS version, right in front of my face. BIOS version is 2001, came out in September of last year. The latest BIOS version is, what, 2023? I think it came out sometime in the spring. It's a few months old. So what I'm going to do, if we come back over here temporarily to, come on, why is this not working? Okay, now I'm confused. Hold on just 1 second. Remember, I was talking about how much I didn't like that keyboard. Let's go over to camera 1 here for a moment. And what I'm going to do is I've already copied or downloaded and copied the BIOS file from ASUS's support page for this motherboard. We're going to literally plug it into any USB port. What does this BIOS fix? I have no idea. But if I install it, I don't have to worry about it. So whether or not we run into a problem that requires a BIOS update, by applying the BIOS update, I guarantee we'll never need the BIOS update. Trying to avoid problems. Problems we'll never have. We're trying to be proactive instead of reactive. We can't predict the future. I can't sit there and put certain buffers in place. In case I slip and fall, I better put a pillow over there so I don't hit the hard floor. If I'm going to fall, I don't know when or where. But I do know that if there is a problem that is fixed with a BIOS update, I'll be downloading and applying the BIOS update, so why not just do it now? Let me go back over to our input here, and with the flash drive installed and me stalling a little bit by talking, that gives the BIOS time to initiate and identify communication with the flash drive. Otherwise, if it doesn't, we have to restart the computer with the flash drive plugged in. Let's see which way it works. Let's go to Tool, and under Easy Flash Utility, see right there at the top, Easy Flash Utility, I hit Enter, and it automatically does nothing. So we see there's 4 drives here. And the drive that is the flash drive, it's not that one. It's definitely not that. Oh, that SSD has data on it. It's not that one. It must be this 8. The 7662 megabyte is 8 gigs. My flash drive is an 8 gig flash drive. Sometimes you got to do the math in your head, man. They didn't sell me a flash drive as 7,600 megabytes. They sold it as an 8 gig flash drive, which is the same thing, essentially. There's our BIOS update right here, 2203. We give that a double click and say yes. It's going to warn us about Bitdefender. Read the file. It's going to verify that that's the right file for this board. Otherwise, it won't let us update. It's not the scary thing it used to be. It verifies, yes, this is the right file for this motherboard. Are you sure you want to do it? So for the 3rd time, we'll tell it yes. Now, this is going to take a couple minutes. So that's normal. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. Don't breathe on it. Don't stand near it. Leave it alone. You've told it to do something. Now, get out of its way and let it do it. At least if you want your BIOS update to succeed. That's the secret. I am telling you the secret. Leave it alone and you're going to be fine. Stop picking at it. It ain't going to heal. All right, well, that's working. I'm going to just put some of these boxes away for the RAM and the SSD. Get them off our counter because we have such little room to work. Any amount of free space I can clear up, I'll take it, you know. And I'll just throw that on the floor. And while we're waiting, let me just check the phone again and see if I'm missing anything. It's a good time for a little break. Ah, an Amazon gift card comes from our friend Mark Gaines. $50 Amazon gift card. Thank you very much, Mark. Cheers, mate. Is that right? Does that sound wrong? Cheers, mate? No, thank you very much. Seriously, we appreciate you so much. And I think that catches us up. And we're just waiting patiently for our BIOS update to complete. Once again, this can take a couple of minutes. It shouldn't take 20 minutes, but you know, probably 3 to 6 minutes on average, which can feel like forever when you're just sitting here staring at it. It also depends on the size of the update. Some updates are relatively minor, and some updates are much bigger and more important. So when you see like updating Area 1 and Area 2 down there at the bottom, that's, at least to me, telling me that's a larger than ordinary BIOS update. They're updating not just one area, they're updating several areas of the BIOS. They're doing that because it's important. And because they're updating so much more, it also means that it's going to take a little bit longer, but it doesn't take very long overall. If you look at the clock, when we started this down at the bottom of the video, this is live and unscripted, you will see in real time what this really takes, unlike an edited, polished video where this all happens in 2 seconds. It's like a cooking show where they're basting and cooking a turkey for 6 hours. So they put it in the oven and then they just happen to have another one that's already cooked so they can keep the show moving along. But I like to keep things real and let you know how long things really take so that you can plan for it accordingly and that you're not shocked or surprised or think something's wrong, that yours is taking longer than mine did. And then you interrupt it, which then bricks your motherboard. And now you've just caused damage to your board where it has to be sent back to the manufacturer in most cases to get it repaired. Whereas if you'd have just left it alone, you'd have been fine. And the reason why you didn't leave it alone is you thought something must be wrong. It's taking so long because on the edited videos I watch, this all happens in 10 seconds. Well, that's because they edited out the 6 minutes or whatever it took and brought it down to 10 seconds. And that is not reality. I'd like to edit out the first 15 years of my life, but you know, I could probably show them all to you compiled in a bunch of clips in about 30 seconds. And Mara has returned.
Hello, everybody.
There's a guy on YouTube named Guga, G-U-G-A, and he reviews restaurants and steakhouses and preps different steaks in different ways. There we go. Now I'm still hands off on this, by the way. Everything you're watching happening is all happening on its own without my interference. It's rebooting on its own. And Guga, I'm not sure where he's from, but he always likes to say everybody. Hi, everybody. This is really delicious, everybody. You know, all throughout his video. And nothing wrong. He's a fantastic, very likable guy. His content is fantastic. But it reminds me of Dr. Nick from The Simpsons. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Nick. And it just cracks me up because you don't hear many people speaking that way. Nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's so unusual. And it kind of makes me smile. He'll be just talking, and just from out of the blue, he'll say, you know, everybody, this is really, really terrible, or this is really, really good. So when you're looking for someplace to eat, I'm telling you, everybody, I love that. I just think it's hilarious. And his content is fantastic. If you want to learn how to marinate steaks and all the things he can marinate them and for how long, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We all eat, right? Maybe we all don't eat meat. He sure does love a steak, I'll tell you that. Okay, everybody. Please enter setup. After setting up Intel's Optane memory, array configuration, blah, blah, blah. Next, you will enter UEFI settings menu. Okay, F1 to continue and take advantage of ASUS optimized performance is what it says. So I hit F1 just like we did before. Now we should have BIOS version 2203, which, is that what it was, 2203? Yeah, 2203. If we go to exit, we should have the option to load optimized defaults. So I'm going to do that, whether or not it makes any changes, and then we're going to save changes and reset. Oh, it's going to change our PTT mode from enable to disable. Should be the other way around. PTT is the platform. Man, I'm talking too fast. The PTT is essentially your TPM. Did you get all that? Platform Trust Technology. I don't know why they renamed it. So after we've loaded our optimized defaults, I need to change that back. Otherwise, we are not going to be Windows 11 compliant without TPM, which in this case is called PTT, turned on. It has nothing to do with the PL1 and PL2 of your voltage settings, okay? And 11th gen wasn't affected by that. Please don't get these things confused. TPM is a security technology, and PTT is simply Intel's name for it, for the same thing. I don't know why they did that, but I feel bad for somebody just starting out as a tech or even a consumer trying to do this yourself, and you're like, what the heck is TPM? Well, it's PTT. Well, what's PTT? Well, it's in your BIOS. Well, what's a BIOS? Well, it's your UEFI. Well, what's a UEFI? Oh, yeah. So don't try and bite off too much at one time. So somewhere in here, maybe it's under, is there a security section? Platform miscellaneous. Do we see PTT in here? No. It's in here somewhere. Trusted computing, it'll be there. Security device enabled. TPM spec, okay. Where is my platform trust technology? Where did that go? PTT, where is it? Should be in here. This is the section it should be in. Oh, this thing has Thunderbolt on it. Nice. PTT. I love... Did you want to know what PTT is? Well, If you enable it, it enables PTT and SKUMGR. But if you disable it, what that does is it disables PTT and SKUMGR. Well, thank you so much. That really cleared everything up for me. So I'm wondering now if this is a different PTT than when Gigabyte says PTT. I don't know now. Even I don't know. So if that's the BIOS default, I'm going to leave it alone. Let's exit. And before I exit, I'm going to pull the flash drive out for my BIOS because we don't need that anymore. And in my drawer here, I have a Windows 11 installation media. And we need to wipe out this SSD we just plugged in because it's used. And we need to reset it back to like new so it can install Windows 11 clean as though it was a brand new drive we're installing in. So let me go ahead and plug my Windows 11 bootable USB media. Now you can make your own for free watching our video on how to do that. It's purely 100% legal and it's coming from a reputable source given that it's coming from Microsoft. And I walk you through how to make what I am using right now to boot from. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose under exit. What I want to do is I want to go to exit right here. I want to save changes and reset. Okay. And then when it reboots, one more time before it boots to the solid state drive, I want to catch it because it's going to default. If the solid state drive is bootable, that's its first choice if it has multiple bootable options. So we have two bootable options right now, our internal SSD, which is used and has some data on it from wherever it came from, and our bootable Windows 11 installation flash drive. It will boot to one or the other with a priority given to the SSD first. So what we need is just to temporarily override that boot order. We don't need to permanently change it. And we can do either one of those two things here in the BIOS, but if we change it, we have to change it back. If we temporarily override it, you see here under boot, we scroll down to UEFI SanDisk Extreme. That's a 16 gig bootable flash drive. Press enter, and now when it goes to boot, it's going to boot first to the flash drive if possible. And if not, then the second thing it'll try and boot from would be the internal SSD. We reversed it just for this one boot only. The little toilet bowl flushing of the little circle going around there, that is indicative of our Windows operating system installation media loading. The fact it says getting ready doesn't normally appear during a normal boot up process, unless you're just doing the installation. Now, once this starts, we go through the same exact process as we always do. The only thing we're changing is we have to delete any existing partitions on this used solid state drive we put in if we want a nice clean install. Now, as this boots up, I don't know why that just did that. That's a little freaky. That should not have happened. Oh, I know what this is. I know exactly what this is. We're going to restart one more time. And remember when I said it said getting ready? What that was doing is it was adjusting the drivers from the old system it came out of to be compatible with the new system that we're using now. Now, normally I have processes where I erase these drives before they go back on the shelf as used drives. But during the move, everything got a little sideways and I threw all the drives in one bag. And, you know, if I had more time, I probably would have just simply erased this drive, you know, even last night if I would have thought about it. It's super easy to erase them. On the other hand, this should be a relatively easy thing to do. I just didn't want to compromise anybody's data, but you know, there's nothing there on the desktop that's anything unusual. And the customer's name is a common one. You'd never be able to identify where that came from. It's something I wouldn't worry about unless I wasn't. If I wasn't filming, I wouldn't care. But when I am filming, you never quite know if anything you expose that isn't yours could come back to the person that owns it, and they may not be happy about it. So anyway, we're going to go back over to boot. We're going to try one more time. We want the boot override to be on this drive right here. And hopefully it'll boot this time. But if not, that indicates to me there's something else going on. Now you'll notice the circle going around isn't dots anymore. Do you notice the difference? Now it's a straight line. And look how fast our setup came up. That's what was supposed to happen just a moment ago. I didn't do anything different that I'm aware of, but clearly it booted two different ways. So we hit next, and again, we're going to go through all the same settings that we always do. You have to agree here. This is a little different on a Windows 11 24H2 installer. We're going to say I don't have a product key for right now. And we're going to choose Windows 11 Pro because that's what product key we're going to buy from SCD CDK deals. We're actually going to buy a Windows 10 Pro key. It's a few dollars cheaper, and we can use that to activate Windows 11 Pro, and no installation of Windows 10 is required. It uses the same keys. Now, this is looking for places that we can install to, and it's going to show us, ignore all the information about what the partitions are. Just look at the disk numbers. We have disk number 0 and we have disk number 1. That's it. That tells us we have 2 drives. Disk 0 is our internal solid state drive, and disk 1 is our Windows installation media. I want disk 0 to only have unallocated space. Anything that says partition, we want to click once and hit delete, and that permanently erases that drive partition, and we want to do that for every single partition. When I tell it to delete the partition, it does have a slight delay of a few seconds, so be patient, and then you'll see that partition goes away. You'll see your unallocated space starts to grow. There we go. And now we'll delete that one, and we wait. Once all the space is all unallocated, it all combines. So now this is what the disk should have looked like if it were already erased or were brand new out of the box. It has no partition, let alone multiples. It has no format. You could use this in Linux or a Mac. It doesn't matter. That's why it comes completely blank. And then you can conform to whatever your operating system is, or however many partitions you need. So once we've established that, now it's just like we took it brand new out of a box, and we hit next. And at this point, it's going to make the partitions it needs, format those partitions, and then copy over all of the installation files from the flash drive so that it can install Windows 11 on its first reboot. So it's basically letting us know we're ready to install. We're keeping nothing. Of course, if it's a brand new build, it wouldn't have had anything on it, right? If all the parts were brand new out of the box, they would be completely devoid of any information, including partition and format. Because again, they don't know what you're using the drive for. So if it already had a pre-formatted partition on it, it would only work for compatible devices. That's why they do it that way. It's a kind of a one-size-fits-all. Planet Kryos with a $5 super chat said, I'm going to Micro Center next week for some toys, mainly for my stepson for Christmas. I need to leave my wallet at home. That's how I am on Amazon. I think I have Amazonitis. Let's see what I've been missing in the chat room. Well, I've been full screen here. Corey wants to know if I turn on XMP. Well, XMP is an interesting thing on the Intel side because where memory clocking really comes in handy is on built-in graphics and gaming, and it can also cause system instability. And what I found in the real world, where I work with real customers that do real work, is they can't tell the difference if XMP is on or not. But sometimes XMP can cause system instability, causing the system to crash, and they definitely notice that. If we were to turn XMP on, it'll be one of the last things we do, because turning it on now on an unfamiliar hardware, it would be very difficult to know if, let's say, the system crashes on us. How do we know what the cause is? Could the cause be bad RAM, or could the cause be because we turned on XMP? Could the cause be because of the power supply or the motherboard or the chip? So my recommendation is you make sure your system works before you modify or change it in any way. If you buy a brand new computer and the first thing you do is take it apart and start to upgrade it, how do you know if that computer was broken or if you just broke it, if it doesn't work? So the first thing you do if you buy a new machine or you buy anything new is you make sure it works. It's like putting salt on your food before you've tasted it. Taste it first. It may not need any more salt. So we need to make sure that this brand new system we built has 100% working components at default settings. And if we're satisfied that everything's working as it should, and we're greedy and we just want a little more, you can go turn XMP on and roll the dice and see if that's going to work or crash. You have more time than I do. So for me personally, I need to be very confident that the machine is 100% stable, and I need to make a note to myself of when I turn XMP on, because if then I start experiencing crashes, or my customer is calling experiencing crashes, and those crashes don't occur for 2 weeks after I turn XMP on, and I didn't make a note of it, I might forget. It's no joke. This could cost me money and really piss off my customers. If you choose to do that, I would treat the situation the same if it was doing it for myself. I would make sure, okay, the system's been running good now for 2 weeks or a month. I'm going to turn on XMP and see what happens. I've seen people turn on XMP before their first boot, and trying to diagnose their system is impossible. It's so difficult because they've changed too many things. I've seen people modify their computers before they've ever turned them on. And then their computer crashes, it's unreliable, and they fail to realize it wasn't the computer that was bad, you made it bad. And because you didn't test it before you started, you might bite into some food you salted and say, this food's too salty. Well, you just ruined it. So whether or not you choose to do it, it's on you, but do have your expectations set accordingly, that it's quite experimental. There's not a 100% guarantee that your RAM is going to operate at the advertised speeds, and there's no guarantee that your RAM will not operate reliably. So sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, and the difference is likely imperceptible to the human eye, unless in the case of gaming, you might get a few more frames per second, but that still won't improve your skill in the game. I can get you a really nice piano, but you're still not going to be a better piano player. I would put more emphasis on your skills as a gamer than on spending money on nonsense to, to me, as a gamer, when I was gaming, we all played with the same hardware. Nobody was able to out-purchase somebody else to be a better gamer. I've got a better controller. I've got a faster internet. No, Pac-Man and Galaga were the same, at the same height, with the same controller, operating at the same frames per second, and the only differentiation between players was player skill. That's it. So I don't know why you want to turn XMP on. There's too much information in the enthusiast community that overemphasizes the difference XMP makes. And when I turn it on for my clients, not one single client has noticed the difference. In fact, one client thought their computer was running slower after I turned XMP on. So I can't tell you what you feel, but I can tell you, you need to feel it. Don't worry about what somebody else is feeling. People chasing benchmarks might be a fun hobby, but it doesn't make me any money. So it may be fine to turn XMP on, it may not be. But we need to make sure the computer that we just built is stable, so that when we turn on XMP, if we lose our stability, we know exactly why. There's a method to my madness, so I can get things done and move on and help the next person. We don't just have one computer, right? We have to work with over 100 different machines, likely 2 of which are not the same, each one with a unique BIOS and chip, and each one with a unique customer who has unique demands and expectations, and follow along with their budgets, and they all want the same thing in common, which is they want a reliable machine. Now, if you want to give up performance for reliability, that's your choice. You could buy a Ferrari for high dollars, but nobody's buying a Ferrari because it's reliable. You can buy a Toyota that's known for reliable, but it's not exactly known as a race car. I mean, they do make race cars, but I mean, when you're talking about regular Toyotas versus regular Ferraris, Toyota's going to be a lot cheaper and a lot more reliable and a lot slower and get much better gas mileage. Choose what's right for you. For my business, I'm all about Toyotas. That's what I do. For somebody else's business, that answer could be completely different. Mike Visions with a £5 super chat says, hey, Carey, here's my late fee. I just got home after I finished upgrading a client system. I noticed your live streaming. Hey, Mike, thanks for joining us. Luke just experienced the live chat memory leak that causes your browser to crash. YouTube and Google don't really seem to care. They've been made aware of this since April or March, and they haven't fixed it yet. Coreyman said he bought a pre-built computer from a local computer store. And he bought it because simply it was cheaper than if he built it himself. This is true of most pre-builts, but they're also, you don't get any choice of quality of components. And they're also very bare minimum on that, not very upgradable or repairable. Regardless, he said it had XMP turned on, but like I just mentioned, it was crashing his games. And after much troubleshooting and wasted time, turned out to be XMP. Once he disabled it, everything was fine. He said it was just one game that was crashing. It only takes one thing, right? If a customer says to me, my Excel and Word and PowerPoint work great, but when I bring up Adobe PDF, it crashes, it's still a support call. It doesn't matter if everything's crashing or one thing's crashing. Customers want nothing to crash. So would you rather go faster? Like a car. You could drive your car 100 miles an hour, but the time it takes you to react to anything, from the time you react to when you're going to hit it rather than avoid the object, at that speed is significantly reduced, resulting in a crash being literally and figuratively more likely. Well, the same is true with XMP. If you want to run a drag race on a car that does 300 plus miles an hour, your likelihood of crashing that rail car is much higher than a regular car. And that car may only be running for 9 seconds or 7 seconds. And you have a high probability of crashing at those speeds. Every little input, every little thing causes it to crash. Well, that's essentially the same with XMP. If you can run it, if you can be stable, and if it makes a positive difference, it's worth it. But likely when you've disabled XMP, you didn't notice any performance difference from your computer. It's not like your computer suddenly got slower, unless you're just looking at benchmarks all day. And that's what enthusiasts do here on YouTube, and it poisons the minds of the average viewer who thinks all of this is a true measure. But the only true measure is you using it. You are the benchmark, not the numbers appearing on the screen. All right, with that, let me go ahead and go back to camera one here for a minute, because now that we've gone this far, the last thing we need to do is just update Windows. So I could take my Windows 11 flash drive out. I can now plug into the network. And then we can see what drivers are missing, and hopefully those will all be provided through Windows Update given the age of the board. Newer boards, likely going to have to download drivers yourself for some items that Windows Update hasn't provided the drivers yet. That takes time. Because this board's a couple of years old, I think we should probably be able to get all the drivers. First, let's see what drivers are missing. So I'm going to jump right back over here, and I'm talking quickly because we're getting close to the 2-hour mark, and I am trying to rush through this. So I'm going to go over to, I have to see this full screen for me. There it is. Oh, the Armory Crate. So the Armory Crate from ASUS will install all of this for us, but it does take up a bit of resources. It can take a while to install. So for right now, I'm just going to say no. If this was a brand new, 890 board, I'd probably say yes to get the drivers. I think we're going to get all the drivers through Windows Update, given how much time there's been since the board came out. We're going to go to the device manager. Let's see what's missing. We have a bunch of unidentified PCIe devices. Okay, it looks like we've got 6 in there. That's all I wanted to see. We'll take another look just to identify the CPU and the RAM are being identified properly. So under the system, we can see we have an Intel Core i5 11600K and 16 gigs of RAM. That's exactly what we put in, and we've installed Windows 11 Pro 24H2. Everything looks beautiful. No problem so far. I'm still not confident we have a reliable system to turn on XMP, and I think even if we did, we'd be more likely to see a crash than we would see a performance increase, so why bother? But that's my personal opinion. What your personal opinion is more important than mine. Okay, so you do what's right for you is what I'm trying to tell you. Don't worry about what I do. Well, Carey's doing it. Well, that doesn't mean you should. All right, we're going to go over here, and we're going to turn this option on. We're going to come down here, and we're going to turn this option on, and this option on, and this option on. And while that's running, we're going to turn this little icon off down here by typing in the word search permission right there. Scroll down to the last option, turn that off, and then that little cartoon goes away. I also like to adjust my power settings to make sure the machine won't go to sleep on us while we're broadcasting. So I type in edit and you'll see edit power plan as suggested. I definitely don't want my display to turn off in 5 minutes. Let's make that 3 hours. And putting a computer to sleep only makes sense if a computer has batteries. Otherwise, putting it to sleep just creates more problems. My computer won't wake up from sleep mode. Well, why did you put it in sleep mode? To save power. Well, then shut it off. I mean, you know, if you want to leave it on, then just have it turn your monitor off. That's the thing that eats up the most power anyway if your system's otherwise idling. But if your computer has batteries in it, sleep mode's there to conserve battery usage. All right, so with that, I ended up closing Windows Update, but Windows Update is still running in the background. I didn't interrupt it, I just minimized. You know, when you close Windows Update up here, you're not actually shutting it down. It's running in the background. And so when we go back to Windows Update, you'll see it has continued to download and install regardless of whether or not the screen is open, just so you know. And so while that downloads and updates, we'll take one look here in the chat room and see what you guys are talking about. The good news is the CPU that we received from Thomas appears to be at 100% working order. The motherboard, the killer motherboard that we received from Planet Kryos, appears to be in 100% working order. So everything's great. And this is what we were trying to do, just to use some parts we got laying around, put them all together, makes a pretty good system. I would change that cooler, but other than that, it's, what the heck? I mean, it's still a very, very capable system. This may only be 25% slower than the latest CPUs you can buy today at full price. So unless you're really, really intolerant and demanding, I hope you have a deep, deep wallet. And then you can be as intolerant and demanding as you can afford. But if you're like the rest of us and you want the best value for the money, I'll tell you what, ain't nothing wrong with an 11th gen Intel in 2024, even 2025 and 2026. This thing won't start to feel old until about 2027 or 2028, minimum. So it's got plenty of life left in it, and you're going to pay half price for it. So choose however your preferences and wallet can afford and prefer. I want to spend $5 and get $200 worth of stuff. Well, so do I. If you could find somewhere that does that, you let us know. Mortant 1210 said, I like it. I'm still using my 10850K. Hey, the 10850K was darn near a flagship processor, right? It wasn't a budget processor like an i3, like a 10, what did they call those? 10100? Oh, those things are a dog now. Still not terrible, but by comparison, they're a dog. But if you buy at the top end of the processor line, whenever you buy it, it's going to last longer than if you bought at the cheaper end. Yeah, nothing wrong with a 10850K. I still have a couple of 10850Ks here. Again, you won't notice Windows boot any faster. Your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, none of that works any differently on a 10850K than it will on you know, the AMD 9900X3D that everybody's ranting and raving about, or 9850, whatever it is. Unless you're a gamer. And I mean a rich gamer, in which case, hey man, that's great. I'm happy for you. I'm not saying it's a bad processor. It's just expensive. And it's really, really beneficial to gamers. Luke Greenia said he's super happy with Project Zero. He said, and it's been fun to play with. For sure, that's an easy system to work on. You know, the case is easy to work on. All the cabling being in the back makes it easy to work on. And it's really powerful and quiet. And it's not bad to look at, right? But it also was more expensive. You know, Project Zero was at least 4 to 5 times more money to put together than today's system. So I can't emphasize enough, you know, adjust your expectations and be reasonable based on what your budget is. And you can be very happy with a great purchase as long as you understand nobody's selling you $100 bills for $50. Okay? It ain't happening. Curtis says, great review. Well, thank you, Curtis. I don't know that it's so much a review as a how-to, but it's all about setting expectations, being reasonable, understanding what things are worth, that nobody's giving away anything for free, pretty much. And when you pay less, you get less. And if you're okay with it, make your purchase. But if you're going to buy something from AliExpress and then be upset when it's not built well and there's no support, you should have known that going into it. That's why I'm telling you. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just saying if you do, however you choose to purchase, understand reasonably what comes along with that purchase. More expensive items generally are built better and last longer and have support. Less expensive items in life in general are not built to the same quality and don't give you any support. Have you been to a dollar store? Have you been to like Dollar General? Have you walked around that place? It's like walking through somebody's basement. Things are on the floor, things are disorganized. There's a lot of cheap stuff there that, you know, pretty much it's going to break within a year and then just throw it in the trash. Is it really cheaper to just buy 12 of these things in the next 12 years and spend $12 and make 12 trips to buy a spatula that's $1 and you keep breaking it, or it keeps bending and melting, or just go get yourself a good name brand spatula for $6 or $8 and have it for the next however long? It's your choice. I know which way I would go. It's kind of the same thing with cars, computers, clothes. Well, not necessarily clothes. A lot of people are in it for the lifestyle. So when we're talking about a lifestyle, particularly in fashion, you're going to spend a lot more to be exclusive, but what you're buying isn't necessarily built any better. You do generally get better service, though, should you have a problem. They don't want to lose you as a customer because they make a lot of money from you. They are motivated to keep you happy. If you're not making much money from a client, who cares if you're happy or not? What motivation do they have to keep you happy? They didn't make much from you. As far as they're concerned, they did you a favor saving you money. If that wasn't good enough, take your business somewhere else. But if they're making a lot of money, then they're motivated to make sure they keep you happy so you'll keep spending more so they can continue to make more. That's just basic business 101. Okay, where are we at on this? Did it finish? No? It says it's installing at 94%. I'm going to let that finish before I hit restart. I know I can restart right now. Kind of bugs my OCD. So we're just going to go ahead. We're almost done with that install. Then we can restart. In the meantime, when we let me rephrase. When we reboot, you see all these Intel components. These are drivers. Some of these drivers were already installing in the background before I even clicked on Windows Update. So they failed because they had already installed and it was trying to install them twice. So when we come back, most of these that say retry won't retry or appear again because they already succeeded. I know that's confusing, but it's normal. Now we can restart. If there is a problem with an update, you'll keep seeing the same update 2 or 3 times, then that's a problem. But just a normal retry, that just means it was installing in the background, plus you were trying to manually install at the same time. Windows could be more transparent about that, but it's perfect, normal, and nothing to worry about. At this point, it's finishing the installation of those updates now, where it has to shut off Windows in order for the updates to go on, just like you have to stop a car before you can change a tire. Okay? Trying to change the tire while the car is in motion might be possible, but quite dangerous. So this is the way it's done. Some updates can go on while Windows is moving. It's in motion and running. Other updates need to shut down Windows because the files Windows needs to run Windows are in use running Windows, and you can't replace those files any more than you can replace a tire on a car that's in motion. It's kind of the same thing. Sometimes it takes a reboot to even replace some of the files, so you may still see more updating like this, where it took a reboot to actually close those files it needed to change, or it needed those new files to activate on a reboot in order to finish updating those. This is all normal in the way software works. Now, luckily for us with modern computers, these updates usually don't take very long, and once they're done, you never have to do the same update again. But as long as there's hackers and bad guys trying to steal your identity or your money, these updates are important that they are regularly updated. And that's why when support for Windows 10 ends next year, about this time next year, you're more or less, without updates, vulnerable every single day more than you were vulnerable before to random attackers around the world that can see you online anytime you turn your computer on and potentially have the ability to exploit your operating system without you clicking on a thing. Just turning the computer on is all you have to do. And the longer you go without updates, the more vulnerable you become. So you can love Windows 10 all you want to. Do you love your identity? Because I assure you the hackers that attack you won't be attacking you using Windows 10. They're going to be using the latest and greatest hardware and technology to steal from you. And we're going to hit retry here. We'll see what happens. And they love it when people refuse to update or upgrade. You make their job so much easier, and you're the one who's going to pay. You're either going to pay to do the upgrade or you're going to pay eventually. There's no way to avoid it. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. You're going to lose your identity, or all of your data is going to become corrupted and you're going to get ransomware, something like that. They're going to say, hey, you want your data back, you give us money. You're going to pay. You want to pay a little bit today, or do you want to pay a lot tomorrow? You choose. Set your expectations accordingly. The world is not going to stop and wait until you're ready. The world moves on with or without you. You don't have to keep up if you don't want to. They're your consequences, not mine. Not anybody else's. So it's hard to feel sorry, right? When somebody goes, oh, I'm a victim. Well, you were warned and you did it anyway. So, you know, what do you want me? What else can I do? Now we're getting these other updates installed right now, and it's completed those. We're going to check one more time. And while it's doing that, let's take a look in the device manager. Okay, so this all right here, I can tell you the SM bus controller draws my eye because that's an Intel chipset driver. I'm a little surprised that it hasn't installed automatically, but there's two ways we can go about resolving this. We can download that ASUS center that'll provide us with all the latest drivers, or we can simply go to the website, the ASUS website for this board, and just download that one driver. So if we go to start without my data, and we're going to uncheck this and click confirm and continue. And continue without this data. Oh my gosh, could you just get me to the freaking home page for the love of all that's holy? And then this is in ASUS, what did I call this? What did they call it? Z590A. Wi-Fi, that's good enough. And then the first website right here takes us to rog.asus.com. That's what I want. We're gonna get rid of that and go over to support. Not the support up here, support down here. And whatever. We'll come over here and look for drivers. So driver and utility. And we're looking for the Intel chipset driver. This takes a minute. We want Windows 11 64-bit. Obviously, I don't need the LAN driver because all that's working. We want this chipset driver right here. We're going to download it, and that should be all we need. Now, we're going to need to come back to this page at some point, right, to check for BIOS updates or driver updates in the future. So let's just go ahead and bookmark it on this machine, and it'll always be there directly for access. We don't have to search for it again. Now we're going to take that download, which we just downloaded into our drivers directory, or rather our downloads directory. We're going to extract it. Now that extracts into another directory, and then within that we're going to have an executable file that says setup or ASUS setup, something like that. There's ASUS setup right there. Double click on it, click yes. We can close these out, and in a moment we should see the Intel installer come up, and just we go through the routine of accepting the license agreement, next. And as this is installing, you see all these drivers got put in. And if we right click on our device manager now, in theory, I think everything's good. Oh, nothing is good. All right. Let's restart. even though it didn't require us to. Let's restart one more time. Maybe I downloaded the management engine and not the chipset driver. Is that what I did? We're going to take another look, and that's another reason why it's good to bookmark the page. I can immediately go back to the page without searching for it. You call it laziness, I call it efficiency. It's not like that page is ever going to change. As long as we own this board, that's where we're going to need to go. You'll see the boot up time on this it may be faster than your $6,000 computer. That's why price alone and looking at specs doesn't necessarily translate to any actual performance that you notice as a user. Depends on how you use it, what your expectations are. Once again, at the device manager, nothing has changed. Okay, so that tells me that was not the right driver I needed. It's still a driver and it's still good that we have it, but that wasn't what I was looking to do. So we'll go over here to bookmarks. Where's our bookmark? Favorites, they call them favorites. Favorites bar. That's what I want right there. And back under drivers and tools for Windows 11, let me look again. This is the Intel management engine. It says it's the chipset driver, but that's the management engine. So let me hit show all. This is the chipset driver. This is the management engine, but up here, it just says chipset. Hence, this is why when I'm working very quickly, little details matter with computers. So we're going to do this one more time, extract these contents into another folder. We'll look for a setup or a SUSE setup. That should take care of it. Well, that's running. We can just close all that out just because it's messy and distracting. We have an install, setup chipset, a SUSE setup. That's what I want, a SUSE setup. Yes. And these setups from Intel, they all look alike, right? It does say Intel chipset device driver. I wasn't paying attention to what it said before. And we're just going to click on those items. And likely as this is installing, we can actually watch the devices in the device manager go away. Right? We have 6 items. And as this installs, as long as we don't touch them, if we just watch them, we should see it blank out and come back and update. And one by one, they should all just start going away. See that? Now we're down to 4 items. Each time it's refreshing, you see it blink. So a change is being made to something else that was already there. Some update is happening. That's not a bad thing. And now we still have 4 items. However, it does require a restart, and it's possible some of those 4 items won't take the driver until we restart. Or it's possible those 4 items will still be there. We can theorize the possibilities for the next 2 hours, or we can restart and have the answer in 12 seconds by simply looking at reality. And that's my preference because I need to get things done. Speculation for me, if I spend more time speculating than working, it's called talking the talk and not walking the walk, you know. Now we still have 4 unknown devices here. Now I can continue to go back or, right, go back to the ASUS website. Now I'm starting to rethink whether or not I should have downloaded the Armory crate, because on a lot of systems we've been working on lately, that's the only driver we've needed. We've not added any hardware to this board. That's why you don't want to start plugging in things until you've established everything is perfect before you add anything else onto it. Otherwise, when things don't work, how do you know it wasn't the thing you changed or added that's causing the problem? So we got to make sure everything that we have as our foundation is 100% functional before we add to the foundation, or we're going to be spinning our wheels, diagnosing and theorizing all day long, just wasting time. Now, if that's fun for you, enjoy yourself. That's not how I work. Now, if I go back to my favorites, where did they go? Favorites are right here. We'll back over to the ASUS support side. So what could it be? We know the LAN works. Wireless is fine. Chipset's fine. Maybe they're audio drivers? I'm kind of lost on this, so I'm going to go ahead and just use the Armory crate. We can grab it right here. The reason why I'm reluctant is the Armory crate is a pretty big piece of software that can take a while to install. The benefit of having it is it will tell us everything that's missing and provide us the drivers for it. And once it's installed, all the wait time it takes to download and install everything, that's only done once. And again, once you've updated your drivers, if you want to, you can uninstall it because it's pretty beefy. If you've got RGB and you want to be able to control your lighting, you need to use the Aura Creator, which is part of the Armory Crate. So, when we put this into a case, for all I know, I might put it in a case with RGB. And we're going to need that Aura software anyway, which puts us right back to installing the Armory Crate. So it looks like, whether I like it or not, I'm having to put the Armory Crate in. So let's do that. And then I'm going to jump back over here for a moment. And let's jump to camera 1. Well, that is installing. I just noticed something. You want to talk about a new motherboard. Check this out. Right here is the audio chip. And it still had the protective plastic over the heatsink. I think he missed one. The problem with leaving the plastic on is it can generate a lot more heat. The heatsink can't breathe properly. Or the chip here, the top of the chip will get hotter. Also, this will yellow in time and make your board look like crap very soon, very quickly. The other benefit is for the guy you sell it to next. Because you kept all the plastic on it thinking you were keeping it nice, even though it looked like crap because all the plastic was wrinkling and yellowed. The person you sell it to will peel the plastic off and it'll be perfectly new for them. So it's really nice of you to think of the next person enjoying what you bought, where you yourself didn't take advantage of it. Stuff like this is easily overlooked, and where typically you're going to find plastic is going to be over anything with a logo or a company name on it. On a power supply, on RAM, anything that's got a company name or logo, they like to protect that from getting scratched up. They don't care if the chip gets damaged. They just want to make sure their name or their logo is protected at all times. Highly recommended you look for that and remove it if you want your product to look as good as it can look and to run as cool as it can run. And let's see, how are we coming along here? I know this Armory Crate takes a while. Oh, I have to agree to their deal. And I have to click yes. Okay, now we're back at it. But this does solve all our problems, right? We don't have to do any thinking. This will think for us. This will analyze the system, see what drivers we have, what drivers we're missing, and then offer them up. At least in theory. There's Marco Maelstrom joining us from Italy. He says, greetings and salutations from a 6 degrees Celsius Italy. Nice, thank you. Good to see you, Marco. Mark Leibowitz said, I just sent you a little indulgence for your Amazon addiction. To thank you for the questions you've answered for me lately. It's a pleasure, Mark. We enjoy anytime our members reach out and, want to say hello or you have questions. That's what we're here for. We're happy to help. Always happy to hear from you guys. While I'm waiting, I guess I can check the phone one more time to see what else I've missed. Running a little bit long today, trying to get caught up. Yes, Leibowitz IT Services sent a $50 Amazon gift card. He said, I asked for more help than usual last couple of weeks. Thank you for all your great advice. I'm just happy I could be useful. Our friend Mitch Morrison is traveling. He's in Bogota, Colombia. And I don't think we're going to have time to get the video up to share with you today, but we'll look at that Friday. There'll be no video tomorrow. Taking the car in for service, oil change, maintenance, and stuff like that. It won't leave any time for me to film either prior to or coming back. So no video tomorrow, but we do have that great new over-the-top 9900X AMD Ryzen build. And then after that, the following Friday, the Ultra 7 285K build. So you definitely want to stick around if you want to see what's the latest and greatest on the mid-range processors. Now, when I say mid-range, they're really high, high end. Both of these chips are just one step below and 50% cheaper, well, almost 50%. Then the next step up. And the next step up is only this much difference in performance and this much difference in price. We were on a limited budget. I'm trying to make your contributions, and I'm trying to make your membership money. I'm trying to spread that out as much as I can to get as much back for my money as I would expect you would do when you're buying a computer. So going and getting a 9950X or whatever, X3D, you're spending more for that one chip than we've spent for this whole system. A lot more. I would say because the motherboard was contributed and the CPU was contributed, the cost of the RAM was what, $50? The cost of that's probably $50, a $50 power supply. We're into this $200, and you're going to drop over $600 for just a CPU. You still got to get the motherboard, the cooler, you got to get a fast flash drive, a fast NVMe drive, otherwise it holds your whole system up. You're going to need an ample power supply. You're probably going to put a graphics card on it, so that you're going to be dropping 10 times more in a minimum than what we've put here today, and your system isn't going to boot up any faster. However, it may run a task you want it to run. It may run that circles around this. It just depends on what your demands are and how much money you've got or are willing to part with in order to have that. So to each their own. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just making sure you understand the difference. And that's why we're not doing the Ultra 9. It's $200 more to go that much faster. Besides, I can't get one anyway. On top of that, the 9900X is similar. It's that much slower than the model above it. And it's $200 more for that little tiny bit more. You just got to be bad at math. I mean, I don't understand why anybody's buying those. I understand why content creators are making a big deal about it. It's new and it generates clicks. Okay. That doesn't mean it's a bad product, but it is a bad value. I'm telling you right now, there's no value in flagship processors. Never has there ever been a value. The 10850K was only, there were two high-end chips, the 10900K and the 10850K, and they were exactly the same chip. But the 10850K ran 100 megahertz, not a gigahertz, 1/10 of a gigahertz slower in frequency speed than the 10800K. It sold for $100 less. Same exact chip, 1/10 of 1 gigahertz slower for $100 less. So you're paying $1 per megahertz. So 100 megahertz, $100 more. 100 megahertz slower, $100 less. Would anybody notice a 1/10 of 1 gigahertz on these processors? I'm sure some people can, but those people must be able to afford it. I don't know. But whatever is the top of the line chip, and especially if it just came out, pull out your wallet. There's no value. There's no value in a Ferrari other than an investment you can resell later, and you don't get that here. Yeah, I just don't understand. If the general public is more likely going to be on a budget that they cannot afford that chip, but for some reason they're all watching those videos and leaving comments, that's amazing. Do you own one? Oh, I can't afford it. Shouldn't you be watching videos on things you can't afford and saying, oh, that's great, thank you for making the suggestion. That's exactly what I need that fits in my budget. Those should be the popular videos. What can you do? Henry says some people just have to have the latest and greatest. I agree. And you know what? If I had the expendable money, just money I had burning a hole in my pocket, I guess that's something to do with it. I would very much love to be in that position. Kelly Stewart joins us. Good evening. Or no, he says, good afternoon, Carey and Mara. Been down with the bug for the last 2 weeks. Not feeling that bad now. Should be able to get back to work this weekend. Well, glad to hear you're feeling better, Kelly. And I'm glad to see you in our chat room. Okay. And of course, Kelly's a frequent contributor here as well, and we appreciate that. Wayne Ellison said he just got an i9 12900K CPU with an ASUS motherboard, Z790, and it was a combo that he got at a combo price. Yeah, just like a fast food place, you know, the combo meal's a little bit cheaper. And it sounds like a great system, the 12900K. Make sure you get your latest BIOS update. You shouldn't have any worries about that being, you know, having processor issues. We're long past that now. It's all been resolved. Another benefit of not being first and paying all that money, you also don't have to deal with all the problems people discovered. Those have all been resolved now, and the prices come down. Okay, how are we on the ASUS crate, the Armory crate? Got to reopen it. Agree to the license agreement, which makes us drag this all the way down. If I can grab it. There it goes. Agree. Skip. Go to the user center. We're going to go down here to the gear and screwdriver, or the wrench and screwdriver. And under driver, it's scanning right now. It says you're missing the Intel LAN driver and the serial I/O driver. Keep scrolling down. It also wants the Realtek. All these grayed out ones means we already installed the drivers. So the Intel chipset driver, I thought combined with the serial I/O, but I guess not. And then sometimes some manufacturers like MSI will still be trying to put Norton or McAfee. By default, it's turned on. Thankfully, ASUS is not doing that anymore. So it's just a couple of items we download and install. And when we're done, then all those devices in the device manager should be happy. In theory, we could speculate, but if this does what it's supposed to do, it should take care of any missing drivers. Again, we could talk about it for hours, or we can just do it and see the results, and that's what we're going to do, and then we'll wrap it up. And I want to say thank you again to all of our members, all of our super members, all the super chat contributions and Amazon gift cards. You guys make these videos possible, with a super shout out specifically to Thomas Kukella and Planet Kryos for contributing the parts that were the catalyst that inspired today's build. This would not have happened without them. I would not have gone out and bought these parts in 2024. But if it makes sense, we have the parts, let's make the video, because you might find yourself in a similar place or with a similar opportunity, and you might be wondering, is it worth it? Well, if your scenario matches this, it's a bargain all day long. Paul M. contributes $10 in Super Chat. He says, I don't donate often because I'm basically poor, but here's a little something. I got news for you, Paul. I'm basically poor because I keep making the content. This is all costing me money. It's money I could be taking and giving it to myself and enriching my own life. But then once it's spent, I won't have any more money coming in. So the only way I can sustain this is to take whatever money I can get in so that we can buy the equipment and make our videos, and I don't have to go get a 40-hour-a-week job where I don't have time to make any videos because I have to earn the money to pay the bills. So it all kind of comes around and goes around. I'm not getting rich. I'm not asking anybody who doesn't have much to give us anything at all other than your kindness. If you can afford to support us, we deeply appreciate it. If you can't, we understand. Yes?
I have a better idea for all that money. Let's go get a herd of cats.
You want a herd of cat? Those are free. They're outside.
I want a whole bunch of them.
They're all over the place.
But that means that we'll have to redo everything.
Kitties
give
are
them a good life.
Kitties are free. I don't know who's paying for cats. You go outside, just pick one up.
Not free.
No, but the cat is free. Unless the cat is food for a bigger cat or a hawk or something, in which case it's food.
No.
But I would say, in general, you should not have to pay for a cat. Just step outside. You'll eventually see them.
You want to feed them? Give them treats?
You don't even have to. You don't have to take
Cat
the cat
toys?
home to feed it. You could just put some food outside.
A cat bed?
I sleep in a cat bed now.
You need a herd of cats.
A herd of cats.
A herd of cats.
Yeah. I don't think the dog's gonna like that.
We'll bring them up together.
You're gonna raise a puppy and a kitten?
Yeah, why not?
We'll never have another vacation again.
I would love that. That would be awesome.
And then we're gonna need a house sitter. And then you're gonna have to go pick up poop out of the backyard, and it won't just be mine this time.
Oh no, that's on you.
Let's see how we're doing over here. Still install. That's why I say this is so time consuming, but it does get the job done, and you should only have to do it once, and you don't have to do it at all. You can do it all by hand. You know, you can go download those. We could download every driver, and I've already installed them all. Eventually, we'd have gotten to the ones we were missing. You know, there's no reason to use a third-party driver installer. I don't recommend any of them under any circumstances. If you swear by one, then you can swear at it in the future. Those things were necessary in earlier versions of Windows, but Microsoft and the manufacturers have long since moved on from the necessity that justified their existence. Now, if you're somebody who was the developer of that software, or if you're somebody who has paid for the software, then you want to get your money's worth out of it. You don't want to abandon it. You've got investment in it. But for the rest of us, don't invest in it now. That ship has sailed. And those people that continue to use them do so because, well, they paid for it, and they would feel really bad if they paid for it and they weren't using it. So the reasons for using them have changed. Some people use a free one, and they use it because it hasn't caused them a problem yet. And until it does, they're going to keep using it. But if you just follow my simple steps, you don't download any additional third-party software, you're not crowding up your hard drive or other memory locations and registry with software you don't need, whether it works or not, you don't need it. All of this stuff is easily available for free for you to get for yourself. End of story. There's no excuse for it anymore other than a personal preference. Not a requirement, but a preference. I'm not here to tell you what your preferences are. Your preferences are uniquely yours, and you're entitled to them, and you're not wrong. Let me be clear. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you, you don't have to do it that way anymore. You may choose to, but back in the day, it wasn't a choice. It was like the easiest option. Now, times have changed. So, you know, proceed however you want to. Andy Archer with a 10-pound super chat said, "My kitties send you some for your kitty." Thank you for that. There's a gentleman named, he's got a YouTube channel called Sam Time, Samtime, and he has a cat virtual assistant called Kiti, Kiti. So if you look in YouTube search, you type Sam Time space Kiti. It's a hilarious video of his cat personal assistant that, you know, self-charges, is fully mobile, and will alert you with notifications constantly. You have to watch it. I'm ruining it. All right, are we done yet? No, still only about halfway through this. Watching this red line. But it's, you know, leave it alone. It's getting there. I don't know why this takes so long, but it doesn't involve any input from you. So you're free to go to the store, leave the house, just let it run. Go get something to eat, go watch some TV. It's doing all the work for you. You could have done it yourself a lot faster, but then you'd have to do the work. We'll let this do the work. It's slower, but we could go do something else. We don't have to sit here and stare at it. Jim KJ3N said, to make his last build video, he spent $750. Yeah, for one video. Now, how many videos are you going to make in a month? If you did 10 videos in a row, that would be $7,500. And unless you're a channel with over 1 million subscribers, there's no way you're earning that back. There's no way. Not on YouTube revenue alone. You have to have memberships. You've got to have merch to sell. You've got to find another source for revenue. You can go get your own sponsors. You can make a deal. You can, you know, look, Minis Forum sends us stuff for free in exchange for a review. And I can tell you right now, if I could work something out to do anything where Minis Forum pays me to promote their products, I'm already promoting them and not getting paid, okay? So if you want to give me some money for what I'm going to promote anyway, that's one of the few companies that I would say yes to. So if Minis Forum said, hey, would you be interested in promoting us officially and we'll give you money for it? Yes. Yeah, because I like the products. I think they're a good value. I think they're a good company. It's not like I've never heard of them before. I'm not just going in for the money grab. If it's not changing my honesty about how I feel about the products and the company, all it's doing is paying me for it, I'll take it. But so few companies fit through my filter like that, that I would endorse them. And of those few that I would, they don't necessarily feel the same way about me, or they want more control, right? So hopefully we can work out something with Minisforum, because that would be a great source of revenue to help relieve some of the pressure off of the members and viewers to help us finance. Like if we can find a way to do that without selling out, that's the challenge. So the one on my mind right now is Minisforum, and kind of sticking a toe in the water to see what kind of reaction I get, because I don't want to ruin what we've got. They're sending me units in exchange for review. No money's exchanging. That's the way it's always been. And I universally pretty much like all the units. There's little criticisms here and there, but I've put them into place at my customers' locations. I would encourage people, if they're looking for a good mini PC, to consider Minisforum. I think they're a great value. I'm doing everything that a paid sponsor would do, or a paid representative endorsing it would say, only I'm doing it because I'm honest. Honesty isn't paying the bill. But it could. Now that we've established this consistency with this company, I'd very much like to continue working for them, and I'd very much think it would be beneficial for both of us. We'll see if they see it the same way. But like I said, anything that we can do to either increase the revenue so the projects can get a little fancier or a little more frequent, or anything that we can do to take the pressure off so we're not constantly reminding the audience how important your contributions are for us. Either way, I think it's good. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and promote a VPN service. I might promote a router or something that has VPN built in, but I'm not promoting just a VPN service, because I think it's a big waste of money and a scam. It doesn't provide what you think it provides. Most people. Let me take a quick look one more time and see how we're doing over here. Yeah, it is still processing. I'm doing my best to stall for time. We're going to be an hour over before we're done here today. So one of the things that occurs is people see the video that's 3 hours long and they go, oh, who has time to watch a 3-hour video? On the other hand, you can go to dinner with a friend and be there for 3 hours. It's not about the dinner, it's about the company. And I think that's what people don't get here, is our sense of community. And you know what? If that's their feeling, we don't want them here anyway. But who wouldn't want to be a part of a kind and supportive community? What does that say about them? So good riddance, we don't need them. But for those who do see that, the community is really where the value of this channel lies. I would love to see this community double, triple, quadruple in size with more like-minded, kind, and supportive individuals. And hopefully we'll get there. In the meantime, in order to grow the community, we have to keep coming out with more content to attract new viewers who've never seen or heard of me in the 15 years I've been doing this. 16 years now? Going to be 17 years I've been on YouTube come January, February, right? 2008 from 2025, 17 years by my math. And there's still people who've only just now seen me for the first time. And there's people that weren't on YouTube last year or last month. There's entire countries around the world that still don't have internet access. And as they come online, this is all a new world to them. So we have so much more potential. John Paul Bacon said, over 2 years, my mom started feeding 2 stray cats, which turned into 50 plus in that amount of time. There's a video on YouTube of a lady that called 911 because she was surrounded with 100 raccoons in her yard. Well, she had been feeding a couple of local raccoons in her yard for 30 years, and apparently, at some point, they all told each other. This lady couldn't get out of her car. She was surrounded by raccoons. She called 911. Help, I'm surrounded by raccoons. I wonder if that's because you've been feeding them for 30 years. Maybe. Yeah, there's nothing worse for me than to go back and watch one of my videos from, 2013, 2012, 2010, 2009, 2008. Who's that guy? Oh, is that me? Ooh, wow. That was much more attractive back then, in my opinion. Had a lot more hair too. Less wrinkles. Less jaded. All right, let's see. Are we done? Hey, we're done. It wants a restart. Hallelujah. All right, so we're going to restart this, and we're going to go to our device manager, and we're going to see if there's any other missing drivers. In theory, if the Armory crate did its job, everything should be taken care of now. Now that's unique from ASUS, but MSI and ASRock and Gigabyte have something similar, but many of them may try and install a McAfee or a Norton or something, and you definitely don't want it installed because you can never get that completely off your computer. Just so you know, it'll stay inside of your files in your system directory and in your registry. You'll never be able to remove them. Let's go to full screen over here. Right click on the start button, device manager. Hallelujah. We are good to go. Now, if Planet Kryos had activated Windows 10 or Windows 11 on this motherboard, the activation stays with the board. And here's how we're going to find out. We're going to go back to System here, and in the search, we're going to type in activation. And as we start to type that, a suggestion will come up like activation settings and see if Windows is activated. Windows is not activated, so that means that if Planet Kryos did activate this, he knew how to deactivate it before he sent it. But when you're buying a used motherboard off eBay or even Amazon, before you buy a product key, after you've gone through all the work we've gone and you've reached this point, this is when you check. You've got all your updates and all your drivers installed. Now check and see if you're activated, because if that machine was activated by the prior owner, regardless that you've changed all the parts, the activation stays with the motherboard. So if they had activated it and all you did was reinstall Windows 11 Pro and it had Windows 11 Pro activated prior, then it'll automatically reassign the product key back and reactivate it. If Planet Kryos, or in the example, someone put in Windows 11 Home, well, it won't activate. And we don't know. We'd have to put Windows 11 Home in and try and see if that activates. Probably a waste of time. But as long as you're putting the same, Windows 11 Pro is probably one of the most common that system builders will use. And it's only like $2 different, so why not use it? But it's possible they had Windows 11 Pro, they had Windows 11 Home activated. And if we install Windows 11 Home without a product key, it may auto reactivate, since that activation stays tied to the motherboard forever. Or they may not have put an operating system on it at all. When you're buying used, you never know. It could be a little bonus in it for you. Something to check for. Marco says he remembers watching the old videos I had where I was scamming the scammers. Yeah, those were fun. Now look at how common that is now, how many people do that. Icarena says, wouldn't it be quicker to just ask Planet Kryos? Well, I'm saying if you bought something used, like if you buy a returned item from Amazon, or if you bought something off eBay or Facebook Marketplace, and someone's like, yeah, I'm not including, this is just the motherboard or whatever, you might find it's activated. Now, you could ask. That doesn't mean what you're going to get is an accurate answer. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what people say. What matters is the situation. So I could reach out and write an email and wait for a response, or in just a fraction of the time, I can see the results. I'm simply making you aware that if you are using used parts, particularly a used motherboard, you should check to see if it already activates on its own before you spend money on a product key. That's all you were supposed to hear. You shouldn't have read anything else into that. Because even if Planet Kryos said, yes, I did install it and it's Windows 10 Home, I don't want Windows 10 Home on this. I don't care. Or if he said, yes, I did activate Windows 11 Pro, but it's not activating, I don't care why. I'm going to buy the key anyway. It doesn't change anything for me. The only thing that changes for me is if this board is already activated or not. That's all I care about. I don't care why. I'm telling you why, just so you know. Why would it be activated? Well, that's why. Well, when should I look for that? Well, not when you buy a brand new motherboard, but when you're buying anything used that is part of, a motherboard's part of that. Something to be aware of. Save you some money. Jim thinks says it takes 5 minutes to install. Well, it's clearly taken us more than 5 minutes to download the Armory Crate and all the drivers. And listen, a product key from SCD Key Deals for Windows 11 Pro, which is my preference to put Windows 11 Pro on here, is $15 and change. Now, by comparison, I went to Five Guys for lunch, and it was $24 for me to eat lunch one time, and I was hungry again a few hours later. The product key for $15 and change is good for the life of the motherboard. For years and years and years, as long as I keep it, I only have to buy it once. I still have to eat again. $15 is all you're going to save. So you're telling me you'd rather waste your time than spend $15? Hey, I would rather help the next customer and get on with life and spend the $15 because that for me is cheaper. So yes, you can go either way, but for me, I still want Windows 11 Pro on here. Even if we put Windows 11 Home on it and it did activate, that's not the way I want to sell it. So it's a big waste of time for me. Some of us have more time, some of us have more money. Some of us have an abundance of time and money. Those are your gamers who can buy $2,000 graphics cards and play games all day. I wish I was one of them. And then some of us have no time and no money. Choose your path. I mean, there's no one-size-fits-all answer here. I'm just simply explaining my preferences, and these are why I have my preferences. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you for all of your support and your kindness and your contributions. Again, to all the super chats, our friend Buster, of course, Frankie B, Oystein, Paul Gray, Rob Foster, of course, Charlie Purdy, Dave Stetzer. So many friendly, generous, Mark Gaines. Oh my gosh, once I go down this road, I'm always leaving somebody out, and I don't mean to. And I just want to check the phone one more time, both as a reminder and to see if I've missed anything. Mark Leibowitz, thank you as well. And Charlie Purdy, of course. As a reminder, our friend Mitch is traveling throughout South America. He'll be back in a few weeks. In the meantime, he's been sending us little update videos as he was in Chile, and then he was in Peru, and now he is in Colombia. He's eventually working his way, I think, to like Brazil. I think Brazil is the last stop, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't know. I don't know his schedule. But he just, while we were live, sent us an update video. So I will hear that and share that with you on Friday. I do hope you will join us on Friday as we do that really nice AMD build coming up on Friday. All thanks to your support and your gift card. All of that was purchased with your gift cards. If you want to know where's that money going, it's on the screen. And if it's not on the screen today, both this Friday and the next Friday, we're doing full builds ground up, solely funded by you guys with no sponsors. So it's because of you the content's happening, and I can't thank you enough for it. Thank you again to Mara, who works tirelessly in the background doing all of the administrative work. And I'm sure she's catching up on that now. She's been awfully quiet since she got back. And of course, our super members, our friends at Acronis, our friends at Roboform, and our friends at SCD Keys, where you can get very discounted, legitimate, legal Windows and Microsoft Office product keys. If you have any problems with any of the endorsements that I promote, let me know, because I only do business with good quality, reputable companies that I use in my real life business, which is unlike any other YouTube channel that I know. And if something's going on that ain't right, You need to make me aware of it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all again on Friday at 1 o'clock Arizona time, which is now noon Pacific because they rolled their clocks back an hour. And it's now 3 p.m. on the Eastern Coast because they rolled their clocks back an hour too. Arizona does not move our clocks ever. That's why the time change is apparent to most of you. But to me, I'm still doing the same thing I've always done. I'm still starting at the same time. You're the ones who rolled your clocks back, not us. Thank you for watching. See you again very, very soon. And until then, oh, and again, I almost forgot. Planet Kryos, Thomas Kukella, another shout out to these amazing members of our community for making this even possible. All right. Now, bye for now.